in fact, we do go to further details whenever there are major events like Umkhosi Umhlanga, that we just stop them completely using RTI. It's something that we just have to apply permanently, because at night it's very dangerous. You know that these minerals beneath the soil are part of an anchor in terms of the economic outlook of the province, but it must not be detrimental towards lives. We want to use this road majority for passengers, for commuters, but not for the trucking company. So it's something that we're doing.
Action SA says the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act empowers the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batohi, to deal with corrupt prosecutors that she says have infiltrated the entity. The party was giving a review of the Government of National Unity's first year in office. Action SA parliamentary leader Ethel Trollip has expressed concerns at the country's fight against corruption.
There's supposed to be a war against corruption in this country. Nobody's seen one shot fired. Nobody has seen one shot fired. And the blame must be laid at the door of the NPA and the National Director of Public Prosecutions, because we see them lose case after case, botching prosecutions. We've called for the suspension of the NDPP. We've called for an investigation into the National Prosecuting Authority. Criminals, especially connected criminals, know that they can get away with murder and that they will evade jail.
Court proceedings in the case related to the death of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro will resume on Thursday in Buckley West Regional Court in Northern Cape. The matter was unable to resume today due to the unavailability of the magistrate. Justice Mokgoro died in May last year following a car crash in April 2023. The partner of the late Judge David Melesi, who was the driver of the vehicle, faces culpable homicide charges. The Civil Defense Agency in Gaza says Israeli forces have killed at least 47 people gathered near an aid site near Khan Yunis. More than 200 are said to be wounded. Eyewitnesses and a journalist told the BBC Israeli drones fired 2 missiles. Then an Israeli tank blasted a shell several hundred meters from a crowd waiting for food. The Israeli military has not yet commented. The BBC Sebastian Asher reports.
This could be the deadliest incident so far in the almost daily shootings that are taking place near aid distribution sites in Gaza. Witnesses say that Israeli forces opened fire and shelled an area near a junction to the east of the southern city of Khan Yunis, where thousands of Palestinians have been gathering in the hope of getting flour from a WFP site. At Banassa Hospital, it's so overcrowded that the many wounded are lying on the floor as medical staff treat their injuries. On Monday, the UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk said that Israel was weaponizing food and called for an investigation into the shootings near aid sites.
Recapping the top story, an e-hailing driver and his 2 passengers have been gunned down at Lindegier in Mitchells Plain on the Cape Flats in the Western Cape. I am on Delambana for SFM News. Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas women set for winner-takes-all ODI against West Indies women. Onyango adamant that expanded World Cup format a game changer, and US Open champ Spawn rises to number 8 in world golf rankings. More details at 3:30.
What if you open up more? Open up to learning and experiencing more of Mzansi and abroad. What if you open up culture and explore the extraordinary, from music to drama and the latest fashion? What if you open up your wild side, discover a world of skyscraping cities and brown sugar beaches? What if you open up your kitchen and immerse yourself in cuisines from all corners of the world? What if you open up your voice with all eyes on you without being seen? What if you open up your morning to lekker conversations and world-class entertainment? What if you open up more?
It's Roll or Be Rolled in the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2. Elimination Week is all about pasta. After learning the art of making fresh pasta from the team at Scala in Cape Town, contestants must present their own unique spin on this Italian classic. Who will earn a spot in the next round and who's going home? Find out on the Tastemaster SA Tuesday evenings at 7:30. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
It's that time of year. Drakensberg Boys Choir Music in the City is upon us. Classic choral works, African rhythms, and foot-stomping Afropop at the Joburg Theatre. 18 to 21 June. Book now on bbchoir.com. See you there.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So as I got to, before I got to studios this afternoon, I had a meeting with, different people, and there were two conversations that dominated the conversation outside of the real reason we met. The one was, what do you fear about what may happen regarding the Israel-Iran war? That's one, in terms of how it may impact on you. And the second one is that, do you know it's one year since the 2024 GNU was formed? Now, it was this week, a year ago, that all these different parties, every day we heard about different parties coming on board. So the GNU is 1 year old, and that was the other conversation about what worked and what didn't work. And I thought we're going to certainly talk about that too. So let me put this to you right away. First of all, give me your one word that encapsulates what you describe as the impact of the GNU in this 1 year. Welcome to the show. My name is Ashraf Garda. As always, this is the National Pulse, and we will be connected on the Pulse for the next 3 hours. You play a huge role in that, so it's much appreciated as per always. We'll take your calls later on. We'll certainly take your WhatsApp, text, and voice note messages, and you know right away you can also connect with us on social media, on Facebook, where we have a live feed, but also on the X platform, the Twitter platform. We have a live visual feed. You can check it out right away. But also you can use the hashtag The National Pulse when you do that. So if you tag us, use hashtag The National Pulse, and then tag SFM Radio and tag myself, Ashraf Garda. But great that you're going to talk to us. We'll have many things to talk about all throughout the day, including that horrific bus and truck crash in KZN. And again, as happens so often, so many lives lost, and the issue of the IEC's symposium political funding that comes up around 5:20. Will not miss that. And by the way, talking about big things happening, we'll be chatting to a representative from Tunisia that you should not miss. I would think that comes up pretty shortly, about the state of the politics in that region. And I'm talking to Yusra Ghannouchi, who's a Tunisian British researcher. She's the daughter of Rashid Ghannouchi. You may know, is the co-founder of the leader of Ennahda, very much at the forefront of political change at that time in the country. What's happened since, right? But let's get to the GNU. So 1 year later, what's working, what hasn't, who's been the big winners, who's been the losers, and let's reflect on that. With me is Professor Stephen Friedman, who's the political analyst and research professor at the Humanities Faculty at the University of Joburg. Prof. Friedman, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon, Asher.
Thank you. I know. Lots of times a year ago we chatted, and you were very adamant. You can't really call it the government of national unity. Have your views changed somewhat 1 year later?
They couldn't possibly change. I'm a political scientist. I'm supposed to study these things, and I know the difference between a government of national unity and a coalition. No, it's still a coalition, Asher. It's a coalition between, in effect, three parties with various other parties tacked on to make it look like a government of national unity. But it's still very much a coalition government. And, of course, a coalition government between the two biggest parties in the country who would much rather not be in government with each other, but who have to be in government with each other because they don't have any other options.
But on that point, that's not unusual, right? So if we just stay with your coalition team around the world, these coalitions somehow stick, but there's lots of bitterness and arguing in between every week, where you'd wonder how long will a coalition survive, or in this case, how long will the GNU survive? So that's not unusual. So what then are your reflections of what's come out of them coming together 1 year later?
Look, it really depends, Ashraf, on what you expect to get out of this. I think that when it was formed, there were some people, I think particularly in the business community, who expected it to be this government which would introduce all sorts of reforms, all sorts of things they thought ought to be fixed and hadn't been, and work together to make those reforms happen. And that's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen because of the factors we've pointed out. They don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and therefore this kind of big reform is not going to happen. On the other hand, although, we talk about what divides them, and there's a lot that divides them, there's actually quite a lot they agree on. They agree on trying to make government work a lot better. They agree on fixing state-owned enterprises. They agree on some pro-business reforms, etc. And on those issues, I guess if you're for that particular agenda, they may well get those. Some things have happened already, and more might happen. The other thing I think is very important to stress to South Africans generally is that because we're in a climate now in which no party has a majority, politicians are more sensitive to public opinion than they've been in the past, because they know that they're competing, and that if they ignore public opinion, they might pay the price at the polls. So that is a very big plus for citizens, that you can get items onto the agenda now which you couldn't before, because the politicians are very keen to get your vote.
Interesting. You spoke about they do agree on lots of things now. Just about every day we have this conversation from people about whether the GNU or this coalition will hold, but it has held, right? Why do you think it has?
Well, it's going to hold, Ashram, and it's going to hold because of the point I made earlier. They don't have other options. If you have a look, the DA is determined to keep the EFF and MK party out of government. So determined are they to keep them out of government that if you look at the Gauteng legislature, the ANC in the Gauteng legislature is governing with a few other parties. They've got about 30% of the seats, and yet they remain in office. Why? Because the DA won't support a no-confidence motion, because if it supports a no-confidence motion, that might let MK and the EFF in. So if the DA is prepared to allow the ANC to govern with 30% in order to keep those parties out, it's not going to leave a government which could let those parties in. The ANC in theory has other options, but it also doesn't want to govern with the EFF and MK. And during the budget crisis that we've had, it was actually quite an important watershed moment, because there were sections of the ANC who said, they can pass a budget with the help of Action SA and BOSA, and therefore if they bring those two parties into government, then they will be able to govern without the DA or the EFF or MK. But that was never a starter, because if they'd gone that route, they would have had a government consisting of 12 parties with a majority of 2 seats. Now, you don't have to be a genius at maths to work out that that means that any party of the 12 with 2 seats or more can hold the whole government to ransom. You can't govern like that for more than a few weeks. So I think they've now realized that what they're in now is the only game in town, at least for a few years. There will be an attempt. That's been conveyed to sections of the media already. There will be an attempt at the end of 2027 at the ANC conference to vote in a slate of people who are opposed to the coalition. But, that's 2.5 years' time, and an awful lot can happen between now and then.
Well, what about, so you spoke about a few things that, let's say, in particular, the ANC and the DAs had to agree on, for expedience, that they probably both agreed that they want to keep the MK and the EFF out, amongst other things, right? Now, having said that, who's been the big winner 1 year later?
Well, I'm not sure it makes sense to talk about a big winner, because what we've actually been seeing is, it's less a government than a coalition, a collection of ministries. Ministers, yes, they do cooperate on some things, but ministers kind of do their own thing, and that can win them brownie points from voters if they get things right, but pay a huge cost if they get things wrong. So in that sense, I'm not sure that any of the parties are a winner. But I do think that the fact that we don't have one party holding majority seats anymore means that citizens can be the winner if they play their cards smartly and make use of the fact that the politicians now have to listen to the people more than they've had for the last 30 years.
Good point. Let me wrap up with this. So maybe you may not agree with the winner-loser scenario, but there clearly has been, especially with the smaller parties that make up the broader, multi-party coalition or GNU, that have, I would think, used their position to position themselves far more prominently than we would have known about them before. Are there parties or individuals that for you stand out who've done that? Not necessarily that they're doing a good job, but they certainly have raised their public profile.
Yes, Dan, I know where you're going with this, and you do have a point. I mean, basically, let's not beat about the bush. We're talking about the Patriotic Alliance, and it is true that since this government was formed, that the Patriotic Alliance has been doing well at the polls. But we really have no way of knowing whether that's because they're in the government or not, because they were eating away at some of the DA's support in the coloured community before they joined the government. So, how you establish whether the fact that they're doing better now is because they're in the government or they would have been doing better anyway, even if they were not in the government, that's very difficult to establish. So, yes, they have gained, but, we don't really know whether that's because they're in the government.
And just the last thing very, very quickly, moving on into the next year, if we do survive another year, right, what's the one thing you'd be looking out for in terms of a barometer of this coalition or GNU heading?
Well, I think they do need to understand that this is not just about politicians, that, ultimately voters will judge them. So I think that in terms of those issues on which they agree, which I detailed, things that, is government working better a year from now? Are state-owned enterprises working better? Is public service improving? I think those are the issues on which they will presumably be judged, because those are the issues that they'll really be paying attention to.
I think it's a good point. Ultimately, is how does it impact the people? Prof. Stephen Friedman, I'm sure we'll have many further conversations in the next few months or the next year or so. I don't know. Much appreciate your time as always here on the National Pulse.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Rockets want to take full control of 90 minutes. Meanwhile, First Touch ladies want to transition quick with First Touch football. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on glittering action between TS Galaxy Queens and First Touch ladies on Saturday 21 June at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I tell you what, if you follow Tunisian politics, you can't ignore the surname Ghannouchi, spelled Ghanouchi. Ghannouchi, because Rashid Ghannouchi is certainly a formidable political figure in that space in terms of human rights, in terms of advocating for change. But I understand that he, in fact, there's been lots of changes, as you know, part of the Arab Spring, but he has been in imprisonment, and I believe for quite a while. So with that in mind, another name linked to that surname is Yusra Ghannouchi, and she's in South Africa right now. We're going to find out exactly why she's here and what's the end goal of her role here. She's the Tunisian British researcher and commentator, and as you can gather from the name, she's the daughter of Rashid Ghannouchi, the co-founder and leader of the Ennahda party. So, Yusra, much appreciate your time. Welcome to South Africa, and certainly welcome to the National Pulse. Okay, we are going to connect. I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to connect with the guest in just a second or two. Just bear with me. Let me just tell us what's coming up. We're going to have a fascinating thought leader conversation coming up shortly on the difficulties that South African women face in climbing the corporate ladder. Yeah, Yusra, I certainly can hear you. Welcome to the National Pulse. Welcome to South Africa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So why... I've introduced you and I've touched on the role of your father in Tunisian politics. Why are you in South Africa?
South Africa is a country that we have always looked up to, both when we were struggling against dictatorship. It was a source of inspiration for its struggle for freedom, and then later also for the building of a diverse and inclusive democracy that was a source of inspiration from which we have learned a lot. As you know, my father was a political prisoner before the revolution, and also he has visited South Africa multiple times in the 90s particularly, and South Africa has always served as a great example and inspiration for him. And after the revolution, also when Tunisia had to deal with its decades of oppression and human rights violations, South Africa provided an inspiring and instructive example of how to deal with transitional justice and build a cohesive society and reconcile a lot from South Africa. And now that Tunisia has unfortunately been dragged back after all the progress that we've achieved after the revolution, now we are being back in dictatorship against which Tunisians revolted in 2011. We have come to South Africa, which represents for us moral leadership in this world in defending freedom and justice, and particularly of its great role now in Palestine. We have support both officially and from South African civil society, and we hope they can support us in our struggle to restore democracy in Tunisia.
Okay, so help us, just give us perspective. So what was the position at the time that your dad was first imprisoned? Then we had the Arab Spring. How did the country change then? And you now talk about the dictatorship once again. So just fill in the blanks here so we understand it.
Yes, obviously it's a long story, and a lot has happened, over a decade after the revolution. So Tunisia was living under dictatorship. Ben Ali, and in that time my father was engaged in this struggle against dictatorship, and that's why he was a political prisoner under all those dictatorships. And in 2011 Tunisia succeeded to topple dictatorship and began to build a democracy, and great progress was made. We promulgated a very progressive and inclusive constitution that guaranteed separation of powers, independence of the judiciary, independence of the media, guaranteed freedom of conscience, freedom of the press, freedom of association, freedom of expression, all these rights. And Tunisia's history, there was some political ability, and because of that and various factors, the regional instability, the interference of counter-revolutionary forces inside and outside Tunisia, and also the economic recession in Tunisia's partners. This meant that not enough progress was made on the economic and social front, and that's where people's expectations after the revolution were very high. So there was some growing dissatisfaction with, unemployment, etc., and these were exploited by Qais Said, someone who, was not known at all before his election as president in 2019. So he exploited people's dissatisfaction with kind of the lack of achievement on the The problem was politicians and democracy itself, and he said that he will these cumbersome and he will achieve what people want in terms of improving the economic situation. Unfortunately, he had a political party and some civil society of the population who had some hope that, dismantle our new emerging and growing and developing democracy and mandate all the rights and freedoms we have achieved revolution. But he has also made the problems that he had due to his July 2020, he has made the economy worse. Because of his lack of competence. So instead of dealing with the economic problems in Tunisia, he has suspended parliament, suspended the government, made his new constitution, and monopolized all power and decision-making in the country, and has taken over the judiciary, etc. So now Tunisians face a situation where, their freedom, their experience,
Let me just see if we can reconnect again. I think there's just been a bad connectivity, unfortunately, with Yousra Ghannouchi. Are you still there? I just want to check before we get to the news headlines. We may well have lost her. Okay, I think I can hear you now. Maybe just put off your video, because maybe that's what's causing the bandwidth problem. But we've got about a minute just to answer this last question then, which is, so obviously you explained the descent then into a dictatorship once again. So therefore, your dad's still in prison once again. What then do you think needs to happen for him to be released? And very quickly, what role can South Africa play? And you've got about a minute in total to answer that.
Yes. So my father is against this dismantling of democracy and re-establishment of dictatorship. And it's not just him. There are many others, political leaders from other parties, as well as judges, journalists, businessmen, bloggers, simple citizens who oppose this coup. And this struggle for the restoration of democracy in Tunisia is important, not just for Tunisia, but for the whole African continent and for all Tunisia's neighbors, because dictatorship, as we all know, can lead to instability, can never achieve prosperity. And we hope that South Africa, as an established democracy, as a force of moral leadership in the continent and the world, would provide support to Tunisians like my father and others who are sacrificing so much in Tunisia.
Okay, well, we'll be tracking your tour. I wish we had more time to talk now. We don't, but we're certainly tracking your tour to South Africa and see what comes out of it. Yousra Ghannouchi, Tunisian-British researcher and commentator, daughter of the imprisoned Rashid Ghannouchi in Tunisia, of course, in North Africa. Much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Right, let's get to the news headlines. Just go on 3:31.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondila Mbana. The Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit in South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. The fourth group of soldiers returning from the SADC peacekeeping mission in the DRC has arrived at Bram Fisher International Airport in Bloemfontein. The soldiers are expected to begin with their demobilization program at Tempe military base in Bloemfontein. And an e-hailing driver and his two passengers have been gunned down at Lintigier in Mitchells Plain on the Cape Flats in the Western Cape. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM.
Good afternoon. Starting off in
Guiding you
Gauteng,
through
the
the
N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash after New Road exit. The R59 northbound in Alberton has a truck fire incident reported before Swartkoppies Road. Eskampa Drive northbound in Pretoria, queuing towards the Putco depot, and New Road in Midrand has delays on the ramp to the N1 North. In KZN, on the R34, bus crash reported between Fred and Ulundi. That's near the White Muflozi River. The M7 St. John's Avenue is queuing. That's through central Pinetown. The N2 southbound has a crash reported on the off-ramp to the M7 highway, and the M7 has ramp closure, so no access to the M4 inbound carriageway. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound has a crash before Rhodes Drive. Victoria Road outbound is slow-moving through Woodstock. Voortrekker Road is slow-moving between Salt River and Maitland, and Viking Way eastbound in Epping, slow-moving towards the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
I think they
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, to me, there's great expectations for the South African men's cricket team. They arrive in South Africa tomorrow, but the women's team are in action now.
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, the Proteas women are set for a crucial final ODI against the West Indies women, with the series tied at 1-1. All-rounder Nondumiso Shangaze is full of confidence after scoring her first ODI half-century in the last match. Now, she says that the team is in good spirits and ready for the challenge, but they'll need to stay focused and consistent to win the series. Actually, the toss for that match has been delayed due to rain, but we'll definitely keep you up to date. It's supposed to start at 4 p.m. South African time. Meanwhile, Cricket South Africa is calling on Proteas fans to come and celebrate the team's World Test Championship victory this Thursday. It'll be at the Nelson Mandela Square. This is from 1 till 3 p.m. Fans are going to have a chance to meet some of their favorites Proteas players and some prize giveaways. So if you do have the time, do make sure you make your way to Thursday so that you can also see the Mace and see some of the Proteas team. Then in football, Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder Jayden Adams says that being on the verge of making a FIFA Club World Cup debut is further evidence as to why he agreed to join the Brazilians earlier this year. Adams is part of the 26-man squad currently in America to face Ulsan HD, Borussia Dortmund and Fluminense in Group F. Ulsan are a close book to Sundowns given the footage of the Korean outfit wasn't readily available, but Adams reveals what they know about their first opponent awaiting them at the stadium in Orlando, Florida.
I think they are a good team. They defend well, counter press, and a ball-playing team also, and a lot of movements. A lot of experience in their team, and but it's going to be a nice challenge for us in the first game. It was a bit difficult for us because we don't know them. The games don't come on the TV, so we can't watch them. But the preparation was well, and I think the team is ready, focused.
Well, the kickoff for the game is midnight tonight or tomorrow. Either way, it's at midnight. Is it midnight tonight, Ashraf? Do I say midnight tonight or midnight tomorrow?
It's a very difficult question, which I've not been able to get right all my life. So if anybody else can assist, just let me know about that.
Let's just say midnight.
Yeah.
Midnight. Yeah. Meanwhile, Sundowns goalkeeper Dennis Onyango says that the new format will be effective in the long run.
What's different? I think it's the number of teams. The previous one had lesser numbers, and this Club World Cup has more than 30 teams, which makes it incredible because you've got to see a lot of quality players from all over the world, and of course the organization also is different from the one in 2016 because now you play group stages, and the previous one you were playing the knockout stages only, but now it gives you an opportunity to play and plan for the next game going forward in the group stages, and of course the last 16.
Still staying with football, Chippa United have announced a major clean-out again with 18 players leaving the club. This is ahead of the new season. The Gqeberha-based club said in a statement that several of the players on the list, including Andile Jali and Craig Martin, had come to the end of their respective contracts and they would not be offered deals to stay. In tennis, world number one Aryna Sabalenka has apologized for statements that she made after losing the French Open final to Coco Gauff earlier in June. Sabalenka lost to Gauff in 3 sets at Roland Garros. After the match, she said that she doesn't think that Gauff won the match because she played incredibly well, but it was because that she made all those mistakes, and Sabalenka feels that her comments were completely unprofessional of her. Then finally in golf, US opener winner JJ Spaun jumped to number 8 in the official world golf rankings, a great rise from 109th to begin the season. Now Spaun began last week ranked 28th in the OWGR before he scored a 2-stroke victory with consecutive birdies in his final round at Oakmont Country Club on Sunday to win the US Open. The 34-year-old has 5 career victories and held the 54-hole lead at the Sunny Open and Players Championship earlier this year. So there we have it. We have the apology from Sabalenka. Remember, I did say I feel like she was not being sportsmanlike by saying what she said. So yeah, do we accept the apology?
Does she need you to accept it?
She needs
or does the
Coco
other player,
off.
Coco, needs to accept it?
Yeah, but I don't think Coco really cares about
Like,
what she said.
move on.
Yeah.
I'm the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Turn up the heat on the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 as the contestants head out to a world-famous Winelands estate to take on the ultimate comfort food challenge, gourmet burgers. Inspired by their dads, they must create the ultimate burger to capture his spirit, with every element made by hand. Fire up the grill and catch the Tastemaster SA Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world, empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us.
Right now, you can apply online, that is, for Absa Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits. All this while listening to the show. This is what ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised thanks to a 2,000 Rands balance booster. While Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a 0 monthly fee credit card. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands per month. Your story matters. Absa. Subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So I'll take your calls in a couple of minutes' time, and you certainly can comment, A, on the conversation I had with Prof. Stephen Friedman about the GNU 1 year later, but also that just one question, one word that for you best encapsulates what your feelings are about the GNU in terms of its relative success or failings. Then that story about Tunisia, very interesting, chatting to Yusra Ghanouchi. My apology, the line was not the greatest, but certainly would like to get your thoughts on that too. And of course, looking ahead to the welcoming of the cricket team tomorrow. Remember, 9:30 in the morning, they arrive at OR Tambo International Airport, the World Test Champions. What a wonderful ring to it. Right. Talking about champions, well, what about being top of the game in terms of women in climbing the corporate ladder? There's a sense that many people believe that so few women reach leadership roles, and why would that be the case? Particularly so in South Africa, right? Sophini Williams is with me, founder of Capital Assignments, and we're going to sort of get a sense of why. And linked to that is a fascinating book called Broken Rung, which perhaps I think sets up the image of our conversation. Fini, much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, I mean, first of all, let's get to the title, because I think that sums it up, right? In terms of the why, then where's the broken rung?
So the broken rung concept comes from a ladder image, if you can imagine, and the first step in the ladder is broken. So the broken rung indicates that many times women don't quite have an opportunity to put their foot onto that first step of the ladder, get that first promotion, and basically get themselves a head start to the next step in their career. So that's basically where the concept comes from, and where the woman that wrote the book wanted us to have that image.
Well, I think it's a very powerful image, and perhaps it gets me thinking about just that. So why would there be a broken rung? That means what the broken rung reflects something else, right? What does it reflect in the chain of climbing the corporate ladder?
Yeah, so I guess the problem that it's reflecting is that women stand at a disadvantage initially, right at the beginning stages, when entering into their careers, because very often there are unconscious biases that exist where men are perceived in many ways that they and perceived and therefore promoted based on potential, whereas women are expected to demonstrate competency repeatedly, not just once, but repeatedly, in order to be seen and noticed and therefore given the promotions. And in fact, it goes even deeper than that, where men often come from a place of private schooling, which obviously boosts access to networks, and they've got, clubs and, whether it's on the sports field that they met people or through their private schooling. And over and above that, they've got their father's business connections and professional networks. So often women are completely excluded from that kind of entry-level advantage, should I say.
All right. So with that in mind, I mean, you do lots of your work in the financial services sector. How does that play out then in that sector, insofar as what is the reality, which I think you've touched on, but the very important one is then what needs to be done about it?
Okay, so the reality is that where I'm seeing it playing out is we play in the C-suite space, where we do executive recruitment for C-suite roles. And as an example, I'm actually experiencing it right now in a search assignment we're doing for a CEO, where honestly, from the talent pool, there are so few women that we are able to choose from, not because they don't have the skills. They're exceptional, but they just quantity-wise are not nearly as many of them as there are men that we can choose from in order to give them those promotions. So as you can imagine, when men get the first step up, then they obviously travel faster through their skills, they get the experience, they get more opportunities. So by the time we sit at the C-suite level, there's a dearth of talent sitting in the, from a gender perspective with women.
No, I mean, that's such an interesting thought.
That's
That's such an interesting thought, because, I mean, that's the issue we normally talk about from a race point of view in South Africa, in terms of the relative disadvantages that many black South Africans, in fact, have faced since the dawn of democracy. Look at historically what's happened, and therefore the need for redress. So if women as a specific sector faces in their own space, the same type of issues. What then, from the different sectors, from government, and I know that women are considered disadvantaged in terms of category, but therefore from government, from civil society, from various boards, what practically needs to happen to redress?
So I think, look, practically, from a practical perspective, women themselves can be doing something about it as well as what corporates can be doing, right? So I think from a woman's perspective, we should be advocating for ourselves in the workplace, right? We should take visible ownership, step up, speak up about our ambitions and our career goals, and really be proactive about building these networks and getting sponsorship internally in organizations, because the many organizations of today are really committed to promote talent, female talent, and of course women of color. So it isn't that corporates don't want to do that. They absolutely do. But at the same time, we as women need to step up and show that we're up for it, and we want to be proactive about saying, pick me.
You use the word sponsorship more than once. Just explain what does sponsorship mean.
So in organizations, as you can imagine, you go into the workplace and you develop connections with different people in the organization. And what you want to do is have influential leaders in the business, even if it's in a different division or a sister company, that when these influential leaders are sitting around the table, either discussing promotions or discussing big projects, they have your back. In other words, they're saying, hey, Thandi is really keen on this opportunity. She's really demonstrated all of the right skills and exposure. Let's give her the opportunity. So they advocate for you internally in the business in order to give you more exposure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Basically, someone saying, I'm going to back you, I'm going to give you a shout out, and I'm going to hold your hand. I think that's so important, right? Are there, so moving forward as we wrap up the conversation, are there any other issues around the redress that we talk about, women sort of missing out on huge promotions that you may want to, share an insight on?
Yeah, I guess if I could give some advice maybe, or shed some insight to women themselves, is to really start owning your career journey out loud. So whether you're at the beginning of your journey or somewhere along your career path, don't assume that your hard work will automatically be noticed. Speak to your manager, tell them what your career ambitions are, explain where it is that you see yourself going, and then ask, can you help me get there? What do I need to demonstrate to be considered for a promotion or a bigger role? So really step up to the table.
Let's just end with this part. You spoke about sponsoring, right? What about mentorship and its relative power?
Oh, mentorship's amazing. And I think, I want to just add in there that as you move through your career, that I really invite women to also offer to be mentors. But if we take it the other way around, look for mentors in their organization. I really encourage women to be networking with men and women in the businesses, asking them, being brave and saying, I really admire you. I'd love it if we could meet for a cup of coffee every 2 months. And I'd love to hear your mentorship, because mentorship's similar but different to sponsorship in that with mentors, they're giving you informal advice. They're helping you to see and navigate the landscape, in these corporate jungles. Like, who should I be talking to? Who should I network with? Where can I go in the organization to get what I need to give myself a step up? So mentors really offer such a significant role when you want to make a career choice. You say, hey, should I go left? Should I go right? And if you've got more than one mentor, you're getting such exceptionally diverse ideas and experience from people who have done it before you.
Well, you certainly got us thinking, and I think the other day I went to an event and one woman stood up and said, "Can you please mentor me?" I think you need to be as forthright as that, isn't it? Feenie Williams, much appreciate your time, founder of Capital Assignments, relating to, I think, the big issue, the difficulties South African women face in climbing the corporate ladder, and a lot of the inspiration of that drawing from the book called Broken Rung. You may want to read that book, Broken Rung. So what's the broken rung in climbing the corporate ladder, certainly for women in business in South Africa? Think about it. I also want to get your one word to describe the GNU. It's 1 year old now. Happy birthday to the GNU. Do we say that? Happy birthday or not?
Top Sport on SAFM.
And in studio, I am joined by Tasneem Solomons, who is a national champion, and her manager, Pride Mashego. A lot of people, when they grow up and they say they want to play sport, they're thinking the hockeys or the soccer of this world. For you to decide, I'm taking this route, this particular sport, how did you start?
I started at the age of 14, so I'm playing pool for 21 years. It's been a struggle, but it kept me from the street, from the wrongdoing. It was my safe place. That's the only time I can do what I want to. Nobody else can tell me. Just to bring you back, I'm not just the national champion, I'm the world champion. I think a lot of ladies looks up to me because I was the first South African to win it. You know, I'm giving them hope, especially our youth.
Top Sport on SAFM.
Right, how confident are you about the financial future, your financial future, that is after retirement? I can just imagine every one of us saying, "Oh, tell me about it." Well, on Thursday, the 19th of June, from 9 a.m., SAFM brings you the 2025 Sanlam Benchmark event, featuring powerful conversations with industry leaders across the retirement, investment, government and healthcare sectors. Hear how we can enable the age of confidence for South Africa's workforce. That's Thursday, 19th of June from 9 a.m. here on SAFM.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, I certainly want to hear what you have to say. Here's a comment. Good afternoon, Ashraf. The GNU, it's just a name because the other parties have no say. It's only the ANC who makes the decisions. I say this because if they all make decisions, we would have not had that squabble of the national budget. Secondly, is this dialogue they are proposing. It's the ANC decision. Thanks from Patrick and Peary. Well, Patrick, here's an interesting thought. It is precisely because the ANC doesn't control everything that we had that squabble regarding the budget. Just think about it, okay? In Tlantla, in KZN, hi.
Are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Ashraf, I've got a problem with your case. You see, your case never mentioned equity report or equity plan. Because equity plan or equity report gets to address all these issues that she's trying to address about women. Equity does that even for people with disability. For example, workforce profile of equity report, it stipulates so clearly what corporates need to do, what companies need to do.
All right, maybe, but I mean, let me just interject this. Maybe she didn't mention that because there were just so many things that we could only talk about in a limited time available. Ashraf, it doesn't mean that your conversation can't be raised either. It's an important one, and I hear you.
Ashraf, for the sake of educating our sisters and giving them the power they need, such things they need to be taught. We need to address them so that we could enforce our policies, not to manipulate them and turn them into something else.
Okay.
Like she's trying to do.
All right. In Tlantla, well, I mean, we don't really know what she's trying to do, but I hear what you say. In Tlantla, thank you for that. And as always here on the National Pulse, we have people across the spectrum having opinions, and you always make us think, even if we disagree sometimes. One thing is great. We all learn. I learn all the time from you, so it's really appreciated. Ronald in Midrand, you're live. Go for it. What's your point?
Yes, Ashraf, there is no GNU. GNU is not working. It's just a group of people who have always wanted to be in cabinet. They are now in cabinet. Things are not going according to plan, but because they have finally achieved their dreams, they are afraid to leave cabinet. They have not adopted the budget because they are not agreeing on anything. They are not even agreeing on a policy direction of the country on international relations. The people who are in cabinet in South Africa, they go to America to say there is genocide in South Africa, and they go support Israel when South Africa supports Palestine. It's just a concoction of dangerous weapons. It doesn't exist. It must just be called for what it is. The closest they can work with the ANC, the MK, and the EFF. As long as they have that ego not to work with those two, they must forget there's nothing like a...
All right, I hear you. But I mean, you know what? Outside the title of GNU, you know, as Stephen Friedman said, you can call it GNU if you want to, but it's certainly a coalition, right? The question is, they can't not have a coalition because no party got a 50%. +1. So we have to have a coalition to govern. Now, what we're talking about is that when you do govern in a coalition, there are going to be contradictions because there are parties with different policies who all have to come together. So why would we be surprised that they all have different views? The question is, are they making decisions together? That's really the fundamental thought that I think you need to consider. Are they able to make decisions together or not? One comment, one word for the GNU, uninspiring from Tsepo, right? Another one, Ashraf, good afternoon. You and your team, listeners of the National Pulse. For me, the impact is zilch, nada. Actually, nothing has changed in the country substantially from Bonga and Katlehong. Well, there you are. Okay, maybe just give it some more perspective about what actually has been the gains of the GNU so far, and then some of the losses, if you like.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf, I don't think this GNU is working. It's not working at all. I mean, imagine the youth that is getting 370 since 2019, instead of adding 30 rands from 130 that they gave to all people. The money is still the same, it's 370. Why are not taking that 30 rand and make it 100 so that those unemployed people can get 400 rand? It's totally unfair, man. This GNU is not working at all. You just need to vote like all these political parties and vote for one single party. Which one, I don't know. But ANC, definitely no.
But
thanks, Mr. Ashraf.
Thank you,
Bongo. Sundisa.
Thanks, Bongo. Thanks. Just call me Ashraf because I'll call you Bongo. We equal on that point there. On the GNU, I mean, it's interesting you link the 30 rand to the 100 rands to the GNU. I mean, it didn't happen before, so why would it be the fault of the GNU? Meaning, what are they doing that's so unique that the others were not able to do, right? Listen, let's be clear about it. You know, you also said there should just be one party governing. That's ideal if one party can convince every one of us, you and I, 50% +1 to vote for them in the next election. If they can't convince us, which they didn't do before, then we're going to have to deal with what we've got. Disparate groups, different policies and ideologies needing to work together. It's like four cousins in a room and they don't talk to each other. They somehow have to work out how they're going to go back in a car on a long trip. They're going to have to take that journey. Think about it. Now, this news is brought to you by Absa Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. So just going 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Site visit looming before potential grey list removal. And 4th group of SANDF deployed to the DRC arrive. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. The Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit in South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. South Africa has made significant progress in completing all the required 22 recommended action items outlined in the action plan adopted when the country was grey listed in 2023. The country was grey listed due to deficiencies in its anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regime. National Treasury Advisor Ishmael Monamiat has commended the increased efforts of law enforcement agencies.
Remember, we were grey listed for a period of just over 2 years, and what FATF assessed was during this time, every 4 months they assess whether there was an increasing trend in both investigations and in prosecutions. And these were the two most difficult action items that we had to achieve, and we expected them to be only dealt with towards the end because they weren't just interested in an increase from one reporting cycle to another, in other words, every 4 months. They wanted to see this increase being sustained throughout this period.
The fourth group of soldiers returning from the SADC peacekeeping mission in the DRC has arrived at Bram Fischer International Airport in Bloemfontein. The soldiers are expected to begin with their demobilization program at Tempe Military Base in Bloemfontein. Their return follows a ceasefire agreement between the M23 rebels and the DRC military. The phased withdrawal is expected to be completed by June 25th. South Africa lost 14 soldiers as M23 rebels advanced on the city of Goma earlier this year. Makhala Masiteng reports.
It's really an emotional part of this coming back of these officials as they come back to South Africa. Of course, this is a moment that they have been waiting to come back. We've seen with the past, the first, the second and the third group as they touch base back in the country that they are very excited. There are mixed emotions.
The accused in the Thabo Bester prison escape saga will be back in the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein on the 19th of September for a final case management hearing. The hearing will determine whether all parties involved are ready for the trial. The trial itself has been set for the 10th of November until March 27 next year. Bester, her girlfriend Dr. Nandipha Makudumana and others appeared in court earlier for a case management hearing. All the accused except for Bester and Makudumana will be represented by the Legal Aid South Africa. One of the accused, Zolile Sekeleni's application to have legal aid was declined. KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thami Ntuli has expressed his condolences to the families of victims of the bus crash near Ulundi, which claimed 10 lives. More than 30 people have been injured. The bus was ferrying EFF supporters back to Vryheid after they attended a Youth Day rally in Durban. Ntuli says government and the road safety authorities need to take steps to ensure that public transport is safer.
But there is something we need to do as the government of KwaZulu-Natal to engage relevant owners of the buses, even a message to the drivers so that really they receive our messages of not being overloaded in the buses when they are transporting the people, of ensuring that they are not speeding, of ensuring that at least they do not have one driver when hours are demanding that there should be 2 drivers. There are things, in fact, to look at.
An e-hailing driver and his 2 passengers have been gunned down at Lintergeer in Mitchells Plain on the Cape Flats in the Western Cape. The fatal shooting happened this morning. Police spokesperson Andre Trott says the incident is believed to be gang-related.
Preliminary reports indicate that unknown suspects travelling in 2 vehicles opened fire on the occupants of an e-hailing Honda sedan at the intersection of Merridale Avenue and Highlands Drive in Lintergeer at approximately 11:10. The e-hailing driver, a male whose age is yet to be confirmed, and 2 passengers, a 38-year-old female and a 36-year-old female, sustained fatal gunshot wounds and were declared deceased on the scene. The motive for the triple murder is believed to be gang-related.
Recapping the top story, the Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit in South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. I'm Wanda Lambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, we hear from Ulsan HD Forward regarding the assessment of Mamelodi Sundowns, the Spa Women's 10-kilometer challenge to celebrate 35 years, and McElroy first to qualify for Team Europe at Ryder Cup. More details at 4:30.
Thanks for that, Chumi, and a reminder that, this news bulletin brought to you by ABSA Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations, terms and conditions apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With a 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. ABSA Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. ABSA, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
Right, now here's some good news for you, right? We are giving away, here on SF, and we're giving away tickets to the Drakensberg Music in the City, taking place on Friday, the 20th, this coming Friday. So to win, all you have to do is answer this question. Where will the Drakensberg Music in the City concert be taking place? Goodness, I don't know. I'm just serious. Where is it? Where will the Drakensberg Music in the City concert be taking place? Now, you will know the answer if you've been listening to the station. So there's your answer. Keep on listening to SFM. You'll get the answer. I need to take my own advice there. Send your answer via WhatsApp to 0614 104 107. You got that? 0614 104 107. Or you can call in ASAP to 086 000 2032.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gululi's interchange. And the R21 southbound in Tembisa has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions towards the R25 Babsfontein Road exit. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash on the off-ramp to the M7 highway, and the M7 St. John's Avenue has queuing traffic reported throughout that central Pinetown region. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
What if you open up more? Open up to learning and experiencing more of Mzansi and abroad. What if you open up culture and explore the extraordinary from music to drama and the latest fashion? What if you open up your wild side, discover a world of skyscraping cities and brown sugar beaches? What if you open up your kitchen and immerse yourself in cuisines from all corners of the world? What if you open up your voice with all eyes on you without being seen? What if you open up your morning to lekker conversations and world-class entertainment? What if you open up more?
It's that time of year. The annual Drakensberg Boys Choir Music in the City is upon us. Classic choral works, African rhythms, and foot-stumping Afropop at the Joburg Theatre. 18 to 21 June. Book now on dbchoir.com. See you there.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, keep the calls coming on the conversation I had with Yusra Ghanouchi from Tunisia, which we have as a podcast as well. You can check it up just now, safm.coza, or we'll have it tweeted too. And then the conversation about the corporate ladder and the broken rung for women in climbing the corporate ladder that I had with Feeney Williams. You may add to that. Of course, the biggest issue, it's 1 year this week. Can you believe it? 1 year for the GNU. What do you make of that? What's your one word that best encapsulates what your feelings are to the GNU 1 year later? But I mean, you don't have to just give the one word. If you want to add on extra, do so, and I'll certainly take your calls as well. Regular callers, you know the number, but I'll give it to you anyway for those who are tuning in for the very first time. But if you are coming on air for the very first time, male or female, young or old, tell me so I can give you a shout out. 086 000 2032, and then WhatsApp 0614 104 107. If you're sending us a voice note there, 30 seconds, please. You can also tweet using the hashtag The National Pulse, and then just tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. Right, let's get on to another issue that we picked up yesterday. Yesterday, we spoke to Tsepo Madlingozi, who's the commissioner for the South African Human Rights Commission, right? And we spoke because of concerns regarding Operation Dudula's activities in Rosettenville in Johannesburg. In fact, Operation Dudula had used some of their social media platforms, including Facebook, referencing the fact that many of the buildings that in that region are being are lived in by people who are undocumented foreign nationals, and they're going to have to do something about it. And they called upon people to support them in their efforts to do something about it. The SA Human Rights Commission felt there were other processes that needed to be done. That means you can't have a situation where Operation Dudula can take matters or the law into their own hands. So we thought, let's get the Operation Dudula position on this one with Zandile Dabula, who's the president of Operation Dudula. Much appreciate your time, Zandile. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Hi. Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners at home. Thank you so much for having us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. So tell me, what happened yesterday? Let's go back to your call out for people to support Operation Dudula. What actually transpired in Rosenthal?
So what transpired yesterday is that after we received, a complaint from communities inviting us that there is a crisis in Rosettenville where crime is just escalating because of the hijacked properties. People are being pushed out of their homes, and these homes are now, some of them have become drug dens, some of them have prostitutions, and some of them other people are being murdered in those properties. And they asked us to intervene. And yes, some of them are the owners of the properties, and some of them are just whistleblowers to say that we know some properties that have been hijacked. The owner was killed, and they know the stories behind that. And unfortunately, they've been to the police station and nothing has happened since. So we responded since communities have asked our help. And yes, we mobilize communities because we also feel that we have spoken a lot about these hijacked properties in and around our cities, our suburbs, because we know that people are being killed for these properties. We thought that let's do it one more time, because we've spoken to the departments, we've marched to different departments, trying to show them that we have a crisis with regards to hijacked properties. So we organized ourselves, but before we even went to Rosettenville, that we had gone to Morford View Police Station, where it's a station that services Rosettenville, and to talk to the station commander. This is what we would like to do. If possible, can we probably collaborate on that? Then we give you the platform to continue and do it. But yes, we've been sent pillar to post. We've been told that we should send emails. We've done that, and it was escalated at the provincial level, and it was back and forth. But they told us straight that they will not help us. But yes, the posters were out. Communities organized themselves, and we went to Rosettenville. So what happened yesterday is that we had some of the complainants who happens to be the owners of the properties. That's where we started. And we got there. Some of them had received letters to those properties, but because they don't respect the owners, they didn't do so. And we respectfully spoke to them, and we gave them a day to go, that when we come back here, at least you guys have to have moved out of the property, because the owners are here and they want their place. And that place, I must say that water and electricity is illegally connected. Confirmed that they would call some guys from the city to come and reconnect them illegally. They pop up amounts of money so that they can pay the technician guys. And those are some of the things that our government needs. We're not taking law into our own hands, but there's a lot of corruption that needs to be dealt with in this country. And we are still that movement that pressurize the government, that pushes them to do what they need to do, because they're not doing it.
So a couple of thoughts. I hear what you're saying about we will not take the law in your own hands. So are you saying you will not, or you don't want to take the law into your own hands?
We don't want to take law into our own hands, because we're the citizens of this country. If we just fold our hands as Operation Dudula and watch our country go down the drain, then we will not be doing justice to our children, because history will definitely judge us. So what we're doing here is that at some point, we as citizens have the right to citizens if we can see that there's a crime that has been committed. And I don't know why is it that SAPS don't want to understand that part, that we do have that right. And we are fighting for the city here as well, because they're not getting any revenue. These buildings are hijacked, the water and lights are being connected illegally. They're not getting anything out of that.
Yeah.
We are helping them to say that we want to put South Africans who are known, that will pay services, and the city receives.
Look, I think the issue of hijacked buildings.
The city cannot function without
Look,
that.
the issue of hijacked buildings, whether they are occupied by foreign nationals or even South African citizens, is unacceptable, because, I mean, as you quite rightfully mentioned, it's the beginning of a complete breakdown in the city, which we've actually seen in the city of Joburg. So I think everybody's on side on that. But there's a sense, certainly from the Human Rights Commission, that you appear to be taking matters into your own hands. And they said, and this is the conversation we had yesterday, that based upon your Facebook pronouncements calling on other people to assist you in getting rid of these foreign nationals, that you could well be charged under the Cyber Crimes Act of 2020, Act 19, which amounts to criminal incitement. So using social media, so cyber crimes, therefore, to incite, so criminal incitement. How do you respond to that?
So these NGOs need to show us which violence was committed, especially yesterday, because everything went well, peacefully. These NGOs, we said that we need to shut their doors because it looks like they're biased. They're not human rights. They should rather state and say they are for foreign human rights and not of just human rights, because when South Africans are being victims and being victimized by the very same illegal migrants, they are not saying anything. They are nowhere to be found. But immediately when we have that is done by foreigners, and then you'll hear coming out and telling us that we are acting out of the law and we are vigilantes. And
but I don't know whether it says, I don't think it was suggested you committed an act of violence yesterday, not at all. I think it's what they called criminal incitement.
They said that we are inciting. Yes, we are inciting.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying that if we were inciting, then there should have been violence yesterday, but there wasn't. So this means that we didn't incite any violence. What we did is we were Africans to reclaim their properties, and we're helping our government because they are doing nothing about it.
So here's the last thing. I mean, so I'll go back to the original point. I think the issue of having undocumented foreign nationals in our country living here as if it's completely normal is unacceptable. And I think we've all said so. You can't have that anywhere in the world, right?
100%.
That's one thing. But there has to be processes around it now.
And let's not forget that they are criminals already. Let's not forget the fact that they are already criminals.
You mean because they're undocumented, is what you say?
Why are they still being represented? Why are the likes of human rights still representing these people? Because they are criminals. They are illegal in this country.
All right,
Why are we treating them with kid gloves?
All right, here's the final thought. I mean, you know that the city of Joburg and Rosettenville forms part of that. It's a suburb within Joburg. They've now created this new bomb squad, as the rugby example, to try and fix things big time. So who are you going to speak to going forward to raise your issues without breaking the law yourself, but to ensure that things get done in accordance with the law for the benefit of the people of the city of Joburg and the rest of South Africa? Just a quick answer on that.
So we've been in communication with the office of the mayor, because even the JPC, because some of these properties belong to them, and also the housing department, to say that we have always suggested these hijacked properties are turned into RDP houses, because there's a long list of people waiting for their RDP homes since 1996. Let them convert them into RDP homes, and they will know who lives in those houses, and people will pay services, even if it's a flat rate. I mean, we can't say what they need to pay, but they also need to be lenient to people, as long as the city will get revenue.
Right. Let's leave it at that. And in terms of a solution, Zandile Dabula, the president of Operation Dudula, whether you have different perspectives on that issue, And here's the point. Does South Africa have a political will and the cities in dealing with undocumented foreign nationals who may well be hijacking buildings big time in the city of Joburg and others too? Think about that.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power, and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world. Empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, welcome. Your thoughts on the position of Operation Dudula, and the broader position is, A, in dealing with people who are undocumented living in South Africa in the first instant, in terms of how do you deal with that as a country, and number two, when they then are residing in buildings or homes and what has been termed hijacked buildings, how do you deal with that? And that could apply to foreign nationals, undocumented, or even South African citizens who are doing the same. Meaning, is there a genuine political will around that? Now, square that off with the other thought from many people, which is when people live here, and many NGOs believe that from a human rights perspective, you can't leave them on the street. You just have to allow them a place to stay. Do you see any contradictions in that or not?
Ashraf, this country is gone. Look at this program called X-Repo. When people are going to our police station, they are being referred to this guy, Xolani. I think, he's an ex-repo guy. When people are going to our courts now, especially small claims court, they are being referred to this program. So it means we no longer have any government employees, because all of them, they are referring this to sort of like, private people. So I don't actually surprised, what Operation Dudula is doing, because, really, we no longer have employees in government to assist our people. So I'll say, Pezwabo, Operation Dudula. Thank you.
Okay, your point is made. In fact, many have said so. The role of NGOs generally is formidable. And if you remove the NGOs in our country, and I'm talking across the board, where would our country be then? Although you say the country is gone. The other one is, even when it comes to safety and security, the role of private security services. Just imagine if you remove them. Never mind the ridiculous cost that we all find we have to pay, whether we want to pay or not, on that issue. Where does that go? Mastermind in Mpumalanga, go for it. Hello.
Ashraf and the listeners of SAFM. Yes, Mr. Ashraf, I just want
to... Mastermind, you still there? No, I think we've just lost Mastermind. Let me just see if I can get Patrick to try and sort that out. We'll take Mastermind in just a moment. There's another comment on another one on Dudula, by the way.
Afternoon, Ashraf and SAFM listeners. Zandile Tabula and Dudula, one day they will bury their heads in sand, because the way they want to gain political mileage is a very wrong narrative. Ashraf, there is no foreigner who came in South Africa with a house or with a building. Those buildings are owned by the very comrades, the very South Africans who are renting them to foreigners. So the way they are trying to gain political mileage, one day they will realize it when there is a mass murder for people who has got nothing to do with politics of South Africa, who are trying to make a living. Thanks, James Johannesburg.
Okay, well, interesting point you make, and we'll keep an eye and see, as you've suggested, where does that go, right? Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf, and lovely South Africans and your team as well. It's Eddie from Onderstress. This incidents of people just got shot in the Mitchell's Plain and other areas, and then termed as gang related. Can we get the MEC, or they call themselves ministers, of police in the Western Cape, so that we understand what is really happening? It can't be that people are just got shot, innocent people for that matter. If it's taxi related, still innocent people cannot be killed like this.
Well,
no, it cannot happen. Can we take Mkhwanazi and deploy him to Western Cape? Thank you very much. Please just invite the MEC so that we understand what is happening when innocent people are getting killed.
All right. The question is which MEC, because there's similar issues around the country. So yesterday, today we're talking about Mitchell's Plain. So there was this e-hailing service, and the driver and one or two occupants were just killed in a drive-by shooting. It's horrific. But what motive would that be for? Why? And then we hear about the story in El Dorado Park. Was it yesterday or the day before? We touched on it yesterday. I think 12 people shot outside a mosque, not linked to the mosque. They just happened to be outside. Also drive-by shooting. They said maybe it's Uber taxi violence type of thing. I think 4 people have died. These things are just so normal in our country. We go to Gqeberha now. And Luvo in Gqeberha, hello.
Good day, Ashraf.
Good to connect with you. Right, go for it. You want to talk about June 16th?
Yeah? Then I would like to talk about June 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Ashraf, you tell me if I'm wrong. Currently, we don't have government. Because for me, what is there for the youth to celebrate? Must our youth in South Africa celebrate for internships? What they must celebrate for? Meaning that June 16th, the ANC needs to be changed completely because the youth, they've got nothing to celebrate. Our youth is frustrated. They're on drugs. It's because of we don't have government. As long as the ANC is still there, there's nothing will come right in this country. I feel so sorry for our youth, man. Really, Ashraf. That's all I want to say.
Well, thank you for that. I'm not too sure, Luba, whether there's... I always felt that's why when people say Happy Youth Day, it can't be Happy Youth Day. It's not a celebration as in when you say Merry Christmas for people. It's not that at all, right? I would think it is a time that reflects on what happened on June 16th and maybe as a springboard that we can use then to inspire others, all of us, the youth, to be empowered for the future. That for me would be the essence. I did say so yesterday, if you want to really celebrate the youth, champion their youth, because our country has to absolutely do this, right? Okay, let's see if I can pick up another quick connection here. All right, I'll tell you what. No, there's another point here that we've got. I want to pick up on this here. There's a response here that we had earlier on. That there's a clip that you may want to hear because we spoke about MECs, right? So here's the MEC Siboniso Duma. Listen to this.
Sure, the cameras are going to assist us this because we want to be sensitive with the matter. When we've already perished 10 people that on the ground, each information that we give remain a sensitive matter, but we can just assure you that both drivers are known. They've been taken to hospital because they are both alive. So we've already dispatched a team from SAPS that they must monitor so that if there is a need to check whether they were drowsy, whether they were intoxicated or under influence of liquor, it's something that must be determined because from now we're still at the level of culpable homicide. Once we determine it is then going to move and we do something, probably are going to do the arrest. But at this point in time, we do want to be emphatic on the business sectors that as long as we've got more trucks on this, because this road at this point in time, it's clear, it has been renovated, or in fact this one, the reseal has happened, and it means that we are doing something as a point of transport. But when you have more trucks, then damages are going to happen.
Because that, just to confirm, is the voice of the MEC in KZN. That's Siboniso Duma responding to the other tragedy, goodness man, of 12 people dying in a crash, a sort of what's called a side swipe crash involving a truck and a bus transporting political party supporters. I think they're from the EFF, back home on the R34 near Vryheid in KwaZulu-Natal late last night. Just another terrible story that, sadly so, is so much a part of our lives. It is our normality, and it should never be like that. 4:30, here's the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit in South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. Human Settlements Minister Thembi Simelane says a lot of work has been done in preparation for the funeral services of the Eastern Cape flood victims, and protesters in Kenya have been attacked with whips and clubs as they called for justice after the death of an activist in police custody. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in central Johannesburg, queuing towards Crown Interchange, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the link to the N12 east at Giluli's Interchange, and the N4 westbound in Pretoria has delays towards the N1 highway. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale, the N2 southbound has a truck crash reported on the ramp to the M7 highway, and Maiden Road has truck congestion reported in the Maiden Wharf area, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving on the link to the R300 North, the M5 northbound queuing towards the N1 Koeberg interchange, and Main Road outbound in Observatory slow moving towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So yesterday we spoke about it as being the summer tour before the season starts, but when it's Sundowns playing, it's a bit more serious. It's the FIFA Club World Cup.
It's the FIFA Club World Cup, and a lot of people are waiting for that one. And Chelsea legend and former Nigerian national team captain Johnny Obi Mikel says that African football will be one of the biggest winners from the FIFA Club World Cup currently underway in the US. The expanded Club World Cup has 4 African representatives, and unlike the previous version, they get to play against opposition from Europe and South America from the group stages. And Mikel believes that this tournament brings new hope for African football and its clubs.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, that's something pretty special. That will be special for clubs, from Africa, to be able to experience this tournament and to live it and see what we in Africa where we can get to if we can just get ours. I don't want to say the word, but get our heads right and make sure we improve the game in the right way and get the right people to run the game. So.
Meanwhile, Ulsan HD striker Gustav Ludvigsson says that they're likely to take a caution approach in the opening few minutes against Mamelodi Sundowns when both teams get their FIFA Club World Cup campaign underway. The two teams are unfamiliar with each other given the limited access to their K-League in South Korea and the PSL by their own admission.
Sure, the first part of the game will be a little bit boxing game, like looking at each other, trying to figure out weaknesses and strengths. But yeah, we are well prepared in analysis, of course. But as you say, I think it's still difficult to see the exact qualities of the player. But we know they are such a strong team. They look at us and see the national team players of Korea that we have, and we do the same. Their team is full of national team players. So from that we can learn something at least and bring that to the game.
Elsewhere, the chief executive of Saudi Pro League club Al Hilal says that a loan move for Cristiano Ronaldo for the Club World Cup would have been completely counterintuitive because he played for their biggest opponent, Al Nassr. Now, Al Hilal were linked with a possible deal for the 40-year-old after FIFA introduced an additional transfer window earlier this month because of a revamped tournament. And both rival Riyadh clubs are controlled by the country's public investment fund, and Ronaldo is out of contract at Al Nassr at the end of June, which actually got me thinking, Ashraf, that do you think perhaps we're starting to move to an era where the so-called superstars of football, it will be normal that they are loaned out to clubs so that they can take part in tournaments like this, the FIFA Club World Cup?
It may be the case. I mean, I hear you talking about the Ronaldo story.
Yeah.
It may be the case because, it's driven by money. So if a club, so basically what you're saying, if your club is not playing in the FIFA Club World Cup and the season's over, right?
Yeah.
But your player is one of the top players in the world and Barcelona wants it because they're playing in that tournament. Mm-hmm. The question, I don't know what the legality is, but I suppose you could. If it's a loan, it's a loan. You could loan him out for a month.
Because you can see with the
it's a farce,
yeah,
but it could take on fast if you get my point.
Absolutely. I think for me, from what I'm seeing, is that they definitely want superstars to be playing in this tournament. In athletics, the Spa Women's 10-kilometer challenge will celebrate a major milestone this Sunday in Durban, marking 35 years since the very first race. The iconic event began in Durban back in 1990 and has since grown into the world's biggest woman-only street race, with editions now held across the country. Race organizers have confirmed that the 10 and the 5-kilometer fun run are officially sold out. Meanwhile, re-elected KwaZulu-Natal Athletics President Steve Mkazi says that despite his narrow victory, he anticipates a legal challenge from one of the candidates who lost the election, questioning the legitimacy of his presidency. The weekend's election stirred controversy as Mkazi secured his second term by defeating former President Sello Mokoena with 36 votes to 24. Only 121 clubs met the credentials submission deadline, with over 46 failing to do so. In total, 95 clubs cast the votes, while others exited, prompting Mkazi to prepare for a possible legal dispute.
Indeed, I have, and I'm humbled by the trust that the athletes or the clubs put on not only on myself but on the team that was elected yesterday. You would know that the board of KZNA comprised of 10 people on the board, as well as commissions. Of the commissions comprised of 8 people each, inclusive of the chairperson. So it's a huge structure, and we live to tell the tale. I don't think there are issues between those who are elected and those who lost the elections, bar one person who seemed to be taking counsel from this rogue lawyer that is here to cripple athletics. It appears that he's advising them to take legal advice on the outcome of the elections. So we wait to see what will become of it.
In cricket, the toss for the third and final ODI between the Proteas women and West Indies at the 3Ws Oval is still delayed due to rain. We'll definitely keep you up to date as the game gets underway. And finally, in golf, Rory McIlroy became the first player to qualify for Europe for the 2025 Ryder Cup, where the Masters champion set to make his 8th consecutive appearance in the biennial event. McIlroy sealed his spot through the European points list, a qualification pathway based on performances in DP World Tour and co-sanctioned events, as the North Irishman has enjoyed 4 victories so far since last August. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
And are you watching the Sundowns game?
Definitely.
Okay. And are you going to the airport tomorrow?
Definitely.
Anything else I should ask you?
Will I be here also for the show
Will you
tomorrow?
be here for the show to tell us all about it?
Definitely.
Why are we not broadcasting from there tomorrow morning? Well,
Because
morning,
it's gonna
not
be
the
morning.
show. It's
Yeah.
too late, but 9 o'clock. Kathy should be there.
At the airport?
Yes.
In the midst of it all. Do you know how crazy it gets when all fans are there waiting for...
We actually did it, by the way, during the, I think the 2007 World Cup. So not so much SAFM. In fact, there was SAFM too, but specifically you had Morning Live there. And as a result of that, when the Rugby World Cup team came, Brian Habana was the player of the tournament.
Yeah.
And then you had Leanne Manners, of course, anchoring Morning Live with Vuyo Mbuli. And there were 2 extra people because it was spread exactly as you said. So you had Tabiso Sitoli
Some reporters out there.
and you had myself. So the 4 of us doing different connecting
Talking to
for that
fans.
event for the fans, and then getting into the press conference live and taking some parts of that live.
Yeah.
2007, my goodness.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
The Morning Brief
the videos for those of us who are watching from afar, when you see mud waters flowing almost at roof level and beyond, and people having to be rescued in that way, it looks scary, but I can only imagine the kind of devastation that it leaves behind. What does it look like?
Yeah, the devastation is enormous. If you look at around the Joslovo area, informal settlement, those places that are under the flood lines are the worst affected. The shacks are submerged underwater. The electricity network system in the whole of Umtata has been severely disrupted. The bridges damaged and more potholes on the street. It's a dire situation.
That's Phelo Oliphant, who is the spokesperson for the Eastern Cape Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs.
Tulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Right, now you can apply online for Absa Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits while listening to the show. This is what ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised thanks to a 2,000 Rand balance booster. While Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a 0 monthly fee credit card. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands per month. Your story matters. Absa. Subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to those numbers with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, it's of course the first day of the week for many of us, so you got news locally and globally, but let's start with Vukile Properties.
Yes, Ashraf, an afternoon to you and to the listeners. Remember, the guys, 65% of their property portfolio is in Spain and Portugal, then 35% in South Africa, and the property assets are worth over just 50 billion. And locally, they own the likes of Hammarskraal, Rainbow Shopping Centre, your Dobsonville Mall. And in Spain and Portugal, portfolio occupancy is at 98.4%, and SA retail vacancy is lowered to 1.7%, revenue up 9%, dividend per share up 6%, and profits as headline earnings per share up 20%. And yes, after that positive session yesterday, though the JSE was closed, investor sentiment is fragile as Trump issued a dire warning against Iran, keeping investors uncertain over the geopolitical outlook. And Trump further said that him leaving the G7 summit earlier had nothing to do with working on a ceasefire, but his reason is much bigger than that. And also anticipation of U.S. central bank interest rate decision kept traders on the edge. And by the way, the U.S. and UK signed off on a previously announced trade deal, and risk of sentiment is prevailing with treasuries rising. That is across the curve, halting the 2 days of losses when it comes to the bond market, and the dollar firmed, hence the rand has weakened. Oil prices are as expected are driven higher by that Israel-Iran conflict, even though major oil and gas infrastructure and flows have so far been spared from substantial impact. Brent crude is up 3% to $75 a barrel. Yellow metal is cautiously retreating on growing uncertainty over the U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran war, as well on a potential ceasefire, reversing a bulk of its recent gains. That's after those unconfirmed reports yesterday that Iran was seeking a ceasefire. The yellow metal is down 0.3% at 3,406, and as much as there has been a strong buy the dip mentality, that is with investors having been rewarded for fading negative news, this time around Ashraf market participants seems reluctant to buy. Markets are in the red with the JSE down 0.7%, tracked mainly by our resources down %. The rand fell 0.6% against the US dollar 17.92, 24.17 against the pound, and 20.63 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela. We'll do another Makwe crossing sometime tomorrow, and the SAFM market update, by the way, coming up from 6 to 7 tonight. So 1 hour of a whole dip into the markets and a whole lot more.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything.
But the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Right, let's get on to other issues. I'm going to take your calls in a few minutes' time. And again, on whatever you think moves the national pulse. There's a huge, not surprisingly, huge amount of people who want to talk about Dudula, right? So I wonder, let's see what you say about that. We'll get to that just now. In the meantime, the issue of the Eastern Cape floods and its impact has been such a terrible story, as you know, right? So the Human Settlements Minister is Thembi Simelane, and the minister was in the Eastern Cape earlier today to assess flood displacements in the Mthatha area. So here's the numbers. Nearly 3,000 households were affected, with 1,000 homes destroyed, gone, finished, right? Now, the SABC News reporter in Nkululeko Nyembezi is in the Eastern Cape, joins me on the line now to get an update on that minister's visit and maybe some other aspects of what's happened and relief efforts too. So, in Nkululeko, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and listeners at home.
Thank you. So let's start with the minister's visit in terms of where did the minister go to and what came out of that visit?
Well, the minister came early this morning, and then she met the provincial leadership, regional leadership, and also the local leadership, just to discuss and also get a brief about what is actually happening and how far are they in terms of intervention, and also the brief about the contribution of humanitarian organizations in this matter. Then she visited the centers. In fact, she visited the center in Dikolin, and then she also visited the site, the Dikolin bridge, where the whole incident occurred, where plus minus 90 people were washed away, mainly from Mthatha West. And then she was very shocked and saddened about the situation here. But we spoke to her about her intervention and the progress on the preparations of memorial service and also the rebuilding or restoration of the situation here in the Mthatha West. Then she told us that they are really in advanced stage, and then all 90 families will be assisted, and then all those who lost their homes or houses were completely destroyed will be moved to centers that will be prepared by the Human Settlement and local government here in the Eastern Cape. So she was just telling us more of preparations and interventions, and so as we speak now, he was addressing the community of Mthatha West, giving them words of hope to the hopeless, and also the assistance that they are providing to these families.
Okay. In terms of the resettlement, I mean, one of the biggest issues that we've experienced already last week was the fact that many of the people have been living in, below the flood line. So they were looking for trouble, no matter what their desperation was. It was an accident waiting to happen. So, I mean, did that come through again in terms of what is the law? How can you enforce them not to live in those places while at the same time still giving them the type of security they need to be able to have a place where they can live?
I think that came out more when the president of the country, Mr. Ramaphosa, visited the area, and also the premier of the Eastern Cape and other ministers. That issue was raised because the issue of land grab or the occupation of land illegally in the Mthatha West was the main cause for concern, and then it has led, some were saying it has led to this disaster because people were told not to build in the low-lying areas, but they were so ignorant, and they decided to occupy the land. But the minister was saying that people will be relocated. Even the premier of the premier in the province, Mr. Oscar Mabuyane, was saying that they will engage communities and try to relocate those who are building their structures in the low-lying areas and the floodplain. So that issue will be addressed according to the minister, and also try to make accommodation available for those who will be affected.
All right. Just the last thing, I mean, what was the response from the people when the Human Settlements Minister actually visited them?
Well, the only plea that came from the communities here is that they urged her to make sure that she delivers to her promises, because most of the time they get promises from government and nothing happens after that. So they want a government to implement their promises, to build them houses, to bring back all the infrastructure that has been that was damaged, and also make sure that there is electricity in the Mthatha West. Because there are areas where there is absolutely no electricity. But we visited one of the centers where people were complaining about the distribution of human aid or humanitarian aid.
Put that on pause. I think that distribution issue is another issue we need to pick up on. Thank you for your time. Nkululeko Nyembezi reporting from the Eastern Cape.
This week on Off Pitch Goals. After league and cup triumphs for Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns, George Maluleka, Lethonolo Majoro and George Lebesi embark on a journey to conquer the glamorous world of cosmetics. Join us as we find out how they maneuver through this highly competitive industry. Streaming on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturday, 21 June at 8:30 p.m. Off Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Oliver Dixon on SAFM.
While Life as Esidimeni was a national story, it really only affected people in Gauteng because it was Gauteng-based hospital.
Funny enough, I always say Life as Esidimeni has been happening. It's just that we didn't know about it.
Oh, wow.
Or sometimes it was never the 144 people that we knew about. And I feel like we only knew about this one because it was such a huge number and it was in the news. We don't know about the 5 that happened in Grahamstown. We don't know about the 2 that happened in Lusikisiki, because maybe the news never get there. But Life as Esidimeni has been happening, and it is still happening today. But it's not 144 people that are dying. That's how we don't know about it.
Siyambonga Mdubeki, who's a writer and actor.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, here's an interesting thought from Tom in Soweto. Ashraf, hi. If police are not doing anything to assist the residents of buildings that have been hijacked, it amounts to dereliction of duty on the part of the police, and you are silent about it. Why do you think I'm silent about it when I've just said already before, and there's me talking, that in fact if a person is undocumented and actually living in a hijacked building, that's not acceptable. That's me talking now. Anyway, Tom continues, why don't you invite the station commanders to your show sometimes? Tom, that point is noted, and I'll certainly get Temba and Keys to work on that. I think it is important that we actually get directly, not on a national scale, but to get to zone in on specific areas. Having said that, you know, and I know that, let's say with Joburg, forget the local police, the mayor and the city, the executive have not been able to do much about it for a good number of years. It's a problem that has festered and grown into something huge, isn't it? Lots of comment about Operation Dudula.
Good day, Ashraf. I say 10 out of 10 to Operation Dudula. In fact, I would urge them to come and help clean up Roodepoort and Krugersdorp areas where those properties there that were previously white-owned have now been occupied by illegal foreigners, and you don't know what's going on there. Big ups to them, and I give 100% support. Great stuff. Thanks, David Soweto.
Thanks for that, David. Okay, you've made your point. There's more, right?
Ashraf, I always ask this question to myself when I listen to when NGOs and human rights are standing up for foreigners, especially the illegal ones. I wonder what are our people getting when they go to all these countries. What should happen to them when they're illegal? Are they going to get the same preference that we give the people here? I doubt it.
Well, it's something I said yesterday. It does. I agree with you that by and large, countries have constitutions. They have a certain human rights record that they want to implement, but they're also there to protect certainly their citizens, and they are very, very tight in their control. So you are right about that. We got something wrong in South Africa in the efforts to enhance human rights, and somehow this free-for-all came about. I really, and I say to someone who is supportive of diversity, because I've made that point before, that doesn't mean you must leave the gate open, and I have said that, right? Here's another on that issue.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Fugana from Durban. You know, Ashraf, I couldn't agree more with this lady from Tutula, because we have South Africans who are arrested in Zimbabwe not so long ago, beginning of this month. I have never heard the so-called South African Human Rights Commission saying anything or saying we're going to assist them or anything. The only time they speak, it's when South Africans saying they're tired of illegal foreigners. I can give you a simple example. All these illegal foreigners who are working in South Africa, if they can be gone, there will be less on unemployment in South Africa.
All right. Well, there's another, and I want to play one more on Dudula too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Fugana from Durban. You know, Ashraf, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, sorry, I've just done that one. I think I've deleted the wrong one. Let's see if we can get back to that. Here's another. It cannot be allowed for illegal foreigners to benefit from our government subsidies before. Let me get that right. It cannot be allowed. Oh, it's a longer version. Let me just get to that. Greetings. I understand the perspective of Operation Dudula. They are fighting for what our human rights should be fighting for us. Dudula is fighting for what is right, and they have taken on the responsibility, the Public Protector's Office, that is not successfully fulfilled, protecting South Africans. It cannot be allowed for illegal foreigners to benefit from our government subsidies before the people of this country. Any person committing crimes, corruption, or any illegal activities should have their human rights revoked, unless it is a human right to be a criminal. The crime and corruption we are tolerating and protecting will soon find us, comes from King Bless. Right, and just talking about the denial of human rights, here's one on the shooting in Eldorado Park.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, those boys that they shoot in Eldorado Park, those boys, the reason why they shot them, because they are robbing Ubers every day. Every day those boys are robbing the Ubers. So those people just retaliate. Then they came back, then they shot them. That's the story. This thing of they say the taxi violence, that's a nonsense story there. That's a nonsense story. Okay then, bye.
Well, thank you for that, giving your perspective. Okay, yeah, it certainly came about from the conversations we had yesterday about it being like an Uber violence or maybe Uber fight. I don't even know, right? But okay, even if others shot these people who were, let's call them crooks or criminals themselves, you still can't have a situation where you can just shoot people and kill them off, can you? And then who did the shooting and what happened to them? I mean, they were not police, were they, that did the shooting? So who did the shooting? Think about that. Here's one on the GNU.
Good day, Ashraf. My one word for the GNU is to persevere. They need to persevere. We can't have MK Party, EFF coming into power. We can't have Jacob Zuma coming back, and the last time he was in power, Jacob Zuma, he sold it to the Guptas. Who knows who's he gonna sell it to next? Maybe to the Iranians. Yeah, the GNU must persevere. Vince Cape Town.
Okay, Vince is certainly on side about that, to say the GNU must persevere. You see, that's the point. Even in my conversation with Stephen Friedman, and please listen out for it, he made it very clear he doesn't agree with the concept of calling it a GNU. But that's a by the by. GNU coalition, we do have this multi-party coalition. The question is not even whether it's working. We have no choice in the matter because no party has got a 50% plus one. That's the reality. The question is, have they been able to hold the middle together at this point in time with all their arguments? And the sense is amongst many people that they have. If you take that away, what would we have had? How do we make decisions every single day. Just think about that, because it's 5 o'clock, which means it's time for the news, brought to you by Absa Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. In the hot seat for the news, here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, SA moves closer to grey list removal and violent protests in Kenya. Good day to you. The Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit to South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. South Africa's made significant progress in completing all the required recommended action items outlined in an action plan when the country was grey listed in 2023 due to deficiencies in its anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures. National Treasury Advisor Ishmael Muminat.
Remember, we were grey listed for a period of just over 2 years, and what FATF assessed was during this time, every 4 months they assess whether there was an increasing trend in both investigations and in prosecutions. And these were the two most difficult action items that we had to achieve, and we expected them to be only dealt with towards the end, because they weren't just interested in an increase from one reporting cycle to another, in other words, every 4 months. They wanted to see this increase being sustained throughout this period.
The Human Settlements Minister, Thembisa Malani, says a lot of work has been done in preparation for the funeral services of the Eastern Cape flood victims. 90 people died in the flooding. The minister says they're meeting with bereaved families to finalise outstanding issues.
Engagements have started with the bereaved. Almost we are ready as government, as the families get to settle down and get themselves ready. Pathologic forensics are almost done with all the necessary work. Bodies has been released to the loved ones. They are busy with preparations. I think we're remaining with about 10 or so paperwork for family members with regard to Home Affairs, which is also on site. Actually expect a temporary truck where all the paperwork for children and family members are being done.
The KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tamin Tuli says 2 people lost their lives in the Durban area during strong winds which pounded the province last week. Gale force winds caused widespread damage to houses and infrastructure. The Premier, together with other government officials, visited one of the affected areas near Pietermaritzburg.
The unfortunate part is the news that we have just received today in the morning that in eThekwini 2 lives were lost during this current disaster. The disaster in KwaZulu-Natal, because of the strong wind, in fact was quite very impactful in terms of creating unfortunate living condition and the working condition in government institution.
Johannesburg's waste management entity Pick It Up is warning the public about a fake job advert circulating on social media and online job sites. It falsely claims that Pick It Up is hiring general workers. Pick It Up spokesperson Musim Kwenazi.
Pick It Up Managing Director Ms. Bukelo Njengolo expressed profound concern over the misuse of social media. It is deeply troubling that individuals are using social media to deceive job seekers who are simply looking for employment opportunities. These deceitful acts not only exploit vulnerable individuals but also have the potential to disrupt Pick It Up operations. Pick It Up reiterates its commitment to transparency in all hiring processes.
The Nelspruit Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga has postponed the bail application of 2 suspects arrested for transporting dagga to tomorrow. They were found with dagga worth around 1 million rand and were arrested along with 3 police officers who were allegedly escorting them. The officers from the White River Flying Squad were granted bail last week. Demonstrators in Kenya have been attacked with whips and clubs as they called for justice after the death of an activist in police custody. Kenyan police say the activist died from self-inflicted wounds, but state pathologists say there's evidence he was assaulted. The BBC's Anne Soy has more.
There were pockets of violence in the center of Kenya's capital when groups of young men riding motorbikes and carrying whips and clubs attacked protesters. Videos have shown the men seemingly working side by side with police who have fired tear gas to try and disrupt the demonstrations. The clashes came as dozens of protesters gathered to call for the sacking of the deputy chief of police. He made a complaint against a young teacher who was then arrested and later died in custody.
Top story, the Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit to South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Gous.
In sports, the Sour Mamelodi Sundowns all set for FIFA Club World Cup showdown. Proteas women 58 for no loss after 6 overs after West Indies women won the toss and elected to bowl first. And Thai cabinet approves $1.2 billion bid to host Formula One race in 2028. More details at 5:30.
Thanks for that, Trimi. And now, let me remind you of this news bulletin brought to you by Absa Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With a 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound queuing at Omonde, the N1 southbound in Sunninghill, as a crash reported at Rivonia Road, and the N3 southbound in Germiston queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a truck crash reported on the off-ramp to the M7 highway, the M19 eastbound in Westville queuing towards Dunkeld Road exit, and Maiden Road has truck congestion reported in the Maiden Wharf area. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound queuing towards Coburg interchange, Malta Road, Berkeley Road interchange, that's the outbound carriageway, is slow moving towards Maitland, and Voortrekker Road eastbound has heavy traffic reported between Salt River and Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
It's that time of year. The annual Drakensberg Boys Choir Music in the City is upon us. Classic choral works, African rhythms, and foot-stumping Afropop at the Joburg Theatre. 18 to 21 June. Book now on bbchoir.com. See you there.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
All right, there's lots of comments we had early on about the GNU 2 years another.
Hi, Ashraf. My word to describe the GNU/coalition after a year of formation is non-performing. Thank you. William in Polokwane.
Okay, why do you say non-performing? I mean, give me some detail. I'd like to know. Here's another one. Ashraf, for me, the one word that describes how I see the government of national unity is fragile. Resilient can be another word, but they're like two complete opposites. Fragile and resilient all at the same time.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, if millions were spent on the Zondo commissions alone, why would the parliament allow Ramaphosa to have a national dialogue whilst we did not even yield positive results on the Zondo commission? This president thinks like everything is a business seminar, money to be spent. Brian Mabai, Protea Glen. Thanks for the
Thank you so much. Sorry, that sort of got cut off at the end. Well, by the way, did you listen to Tula Sizwe's conversation today with the spokesperson from the presidency around the dialogue cost and saying it's certainly not confirmed it's 700 million rand. There's lots of speculation about that. A lot more detail is still going into it before we get finality on that issue. Here's another.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and afternoon to your listeners. Bongani machine in here in Kwakwa, in Maluti Apofu. One word for the GNU is disaster. Disaster. Thank you, my man.
Okay, that's 2 words. Disaster. Not very good, but I get your point. Thank you for that. We'll be talking about ISC and political funding coming up shortly. The very important conversation, right?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf, I don't think this GNU is working. It's not working at all. I mean, imagine the youth that is getting 370 since 2019, instead of adding 30 rands from 130 that they gave to all people. The money is still the same, it's 370. Why are not taking that 30 rand and make it 100 so that those unemployed people can get 400 rand? It's totally unfair, man. This GNU is not working at all. You just need to vote like all these political parties and vote for one single party. Which one, I don't know, but ANC, definitely no. Thanks, Mr. Ashraf. Bongo, Sundisa.
Thanks, Bongo. This is something we raised earlier too, but if it's not working, do you blame the 30 rand to 100 rand on the multi-party democracy or GNU, or do you blame it on one party? And to get to the one party, it means convincing 50% plus one. So when you have a GNU or a coalition, it does mean that not enough people support one party. We have to learn to work with each other, even if we disagree vehemently, and that's really what it is, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I don't like war. War is always caused by a handful of politicians who have their own selfish interests, and I'm absolutely neutral in this conflict between Israel and Hamas, which is backed by Iran. But what was interesting to me was Benjamin Netanyahu's statement when he condemned Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, as well as Mark Carney from Canada. I think Netanyahu and the Americans have intel about the resistance of Hamas also being backed by these three nations. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Thank you. Well, okay, I hear your point about neutrality, but listen, and I saw Tembisa Fakule's points about Iran and Israel, and saying you can't be neutral on this. I'm not saying it's my advice to you. I'm just saying that's what it is, right? We should be chatting about the MK party and, former President Zuma's points that he brought up late yesterday about the future. We'll come to that and the SGs and lots of insinuation about Floyd Shivambu, right? Hopefully we'll do that in a few minutes' time.
Good day, Ashraf. Let me just explain it to you. It's very simple. The game is mid-morning because when it's kickoff, everything won't be the 17th. It will be the 18th on our time. The minutes, the second half, the first half, all the play will be tomorrow. So it's mid-morning. Thank you.
Okay.
Lutando here.
Thank you for that, Lutando. Although from a South African perspective, to think about 1 minute past 12 is tomorrow morning, it's very difficult to comprehend when you're like, can't wait to go back to sleep, isn't it? Lenius from wants to comment on the GNU. Lenius, go for it. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon, Lenius. Go for it.
Yes, and we have spoken about this GNU right at the beginning that as long as it has the DA, it is going to be very problematic. It is not working. There is no ideological glue among the parties that are in the GNU. The only thing that is holding them is fear. And also, of course, that fear, then we have got capital piggybacking on that fear. Otherwise, it is not functioning properly.
Okay, so here's a quick one from you, Lennis. I heard what you said about the DA. Now, if you remove the DA from that equation, who do you bring in and why are you so convinced it will work?
Well, Ashraf, you need to get people that are ideologically aligned. to work together. You can't have parties that are ideologically opposed, and then you expect that they will work together. It is just simply not possible.
But isn't the nature of a coalition the fact that they are ideologically opposed and they have to work together? That's the nature of a coalition. If they're completely aligned, they might as well form one party.
Not correct, Ashraf. Those that actually go to a coalition is because there are certain issues politically that they agree on. They may not agree on all. But here now we have got a party that is completely opposed to the other. You see, so now there is no way that they can work because they have to discuss and debate each and everything, even what is common sense. It has to be discussed.
Okay.
Because they are opposed to each other.
All right. Got that point made, whether they really oppose. I don't know. I mean, as Stephen Friedman said actually early on, and please listen to that podcast. It's just been tweeted by Vusani as well, so you can check it up on the Twitter platform, but also safm.co.za. Go to the website. You'll get all our podcasts there. So actually, they've learned, they have a lot more in common than you may think, and they've learned to agree on a lot of things, even though they may disagree on some fundamental issues. Right. Matebe in Mpumalanga, go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Good
How
afternoon.
are you?
Yeah, I'm very good indeed. What's your point?
I'm good. Yes, I want to ask a question. After this national dialogue, and what's going to happen?
I also want to ask the question, after this national dialogue ends, what's going to happen? That's the point that I'm saying. We don't really know what the brief is. I'm not clear about it. I don't know what powers they have. So that's why if you ask me, is it going to work or not work, I can't tell you.
Yeah, because it's not like we don't have other issues that must be resolved. They're going to sit there, talk, and what after spending rents. Look, we are having a state capture that was investigated. So that commission helped us with anything. Then now they want to go and talk again, gossip as if...
But I mean, they're two different issues. One is an actual inquiry, and the other is effectively finding solutions for a better South Africa. And obviously, what it suggests is the current scenario of the political parties currently can't do it. I mean, that's the reason for national dialogue. That's what I would think, anyway.
But this national dialogue, is it necessary? Because, look, we're having an issue with the state capture. Inquiry was held. They found those diagnoses. What was the issue? If there was a corruption. Then why now must go and sit and gossip? Where is not going to be any solution.
I think we really need to find out more when we get more detail, so we can fully understand what exactly are they trying to say. So, Matebe, thank you for that call in Mpumalanga. Always good to connect with you. Right, right. Let's get. It's amazing. There's been a lot of people wanting to talk about some of the biggest issues. Right. So we'll chat about the MK party and the conversation that former president, but certainly the president of the party, had with his constituency yesterday after this.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up. Planet Earth, third planet from the sun. A cool place within the solar system where you can pause and take a deep breath without your lungs exploding. Home to an amazing array of wildlife and amazing landscapes that will leave you breathless either through wonder or fear. For humans, it's a place they call home, the only one that they have now. Team Surai follows a dedicated group of individuals dedicated to protecting the planet. Their mission: to encourage viewers to take concrete steps to protect the Earth. Catch Team Surai Thursdays at 6 p.m. S3. Open up.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power, and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world, empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's get to the issue that developed yesterday. You know, President Zuma, the president of the MK party, first of all addressed the issues of the youth on Youth Day, and there was the launch of this Youth League of the MK party. And then he spoke about other things, in particular touched on the issues of the 7 SGs that the MK party has had. So let's talk about that. Firstly, I'm going to introduce my guest, Professor Andre Duvenhage, who is a political analyst, as you know. Prof. Duvenhage, good to chat with you once again on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, nice talking to you from the Northwest University here from Potchefstroom.
Thank you so much. Right now, let's do this. I'm going to first play the leader of the MK party, President Zuma's central message that he delivered at the June 16th MK Youth League rally. Then we'll get Prof. Duvenhage to comment.
If you look seriously, you'll realize that if we have one of us, ophuma eceleni, asimnengi. Let me just tell you, abantu asebeke baba o-Secretary General kule sebe u-7 manje. Ngoba sidlali. Noma ngabe uzazi ukuthi umkhulu, uyathandwa, uyikho konke, we don't care. We talk about our party. Laba bala kule party, abathi mabebona umuntu engasebenzi sikhuluma lesazi ukuthi kwenze njani noma eneyinkinga noma onile. Ebese sithi awusuke. Akekho umuntu odala ukuthi uyohlala esikhundleni kuyozangena ezulwini. Ayikho lonto. Akuyona indaba yakho if you don't know. Ozubuza ukuthi kwenze njani. Kunabantu abaze bathi bafuna ukulokhuza ukuprotesta ngoba sithatha idecision ethile. Kusho ukuthi ayikakheki le party le. Ayikakheki ngale ndlela esifuna ngayo. Nginitshela impela. Nani nivuma impela nize nixoxe indaba nibhale ngayo. Yini yona le sifuna inkululeko la. Asivikeli umuntu. Sikhuluma nomonke umuntu la. Nalabe sathi kuqala bahambe azange sibaxoshe. Wayihambela ngoba kwakunezinto ezirong. Singafuni ukubaphoxa. Sitsheni isizwe ukuthi bonini. Ngoba iningi labo loneli kukhulu. Manje waye bese ningena indaba eningayazi. Waye ke ningewona olokhuza nihlala nithini lento lephezulu lapha. Lenhlangano Anioni high command. Anioni high command. I high command okufanele ukuthi ikhulume indaba zalenhlangano. Kowenza kahle nongenzi kahle. Kowenza inkinga nongenzi inkinga. Akuyona indaba yabenu le sengitshena abadala ke manje nothi ngani. Ngoba ibona ngizokuthiwa impela bazobe beprotesta. Kufanele ngabe sithola inkululeko silela inkululeko siyavikelana sodwa. Singazi nokuthi lo munye umuntu wenzeni. Ayenziwa lonto. Uma sithatha isinqumo sokuthi sakha lenhlangano, sasingakho inhlangano ezokwenza nalokho okuzwayo okwenziwa abanye. Ingakho nje abanye abantu abenza izinto ezirong singafuni ukubaphoxa. Uma sithi akaphume lo. Asisho ngoba simsukela nje. Ngizwa kahle. Kodwa ngeke sinitshene ngoba asifuni ungcolisa amagama abantu. Thina sibhekene nani nokukhulula umuntu omnyama. Asibhekile ukuthi umuntu omnyama onathi uma mhlambe kukhona okuthile sokufanele ukuthi siyeke umzabalazo ke manje sizolwa sodwa. Hawu webantu. Thina abantu abamnyama hawu.
Okay, so just to give you a sense of what was said, he said, in essence, many people, this is, of course, President Zuma, right? President of the MK party, saying, well, first of all, nobody's bigger than the MK party. Then he said, we've had many people leaving the party because of the wrongdoings they did. Only the high command can talk about who's doing well and who's not. People want to protest for nothing, things they know nothing about. When we remove someone, we don't do it out of nothing. We don't share what's wrong, what they did in public. But then linked to that is the point that he made that, yes, we've had 7 Secretary Generals. He didn't specifically mention Floyd Shivambu, but the insinuation amongst many people is like, clearly he was talking about him because he was supposed to be moved from the SG to a member of parliament. That hasn't quite happened. So let's then bring in Prof. Duvenage. Good to connect with you. You got the sense of what happened yesterday. What do you make of President Zuma's making that point to his own constituency and sort of hinting about the fact that, we're in charge and we may love you, but if you do wrong, you're out?
Well, when I was listening and also your interpretation, because my Zulu is not on that specific level, it is a number of things is clear to me. The first one is that there's not a big difference between Jacob Zuma and the MK party. And basically, the MK party is synonymous to Jacob Zuma. If he talk the high command of the party, to whom is he referring? Basically, to himself and probably another individual or two. Because if the Secretary General, the most important position within the party, is excluded from the High Command, who is the High Command? So the High Command is Jacob Zuma. And he is ruling the party the way he governs South Africa. And in our academic literature in political science, we have a phenomenon we call the weak state. And one of the things leaders are doing in a weak state environment is to reposition or exclude leadership all the time if they are in a competitive environment with some of the leaders. So you put him either in another position or you exclude him. Now, what is interesting, and I also pick it up from the side of Floyd Shivambu, who said that he was ordered by Jacob Zuma to go to Malawi to visit the specific reverend. And he only did this, and on basis of that, he was fired. My take on it is quite different. We must first look at the structure of the party. It's patriarchal
But did Floyd Shivambu actually say that he went on behest of Jacob Zuma? I certainly haven't picked that up before.
It was. I read it in the media that he said that he was sent by Jacob Zuma to go to Malawi. It was reported that way. I don't know if he speaks the truth on that, but it was reported that way. But I believe if he did send him or he didn't send him, the outcome would have been the same. And to try and understand it, you need to understand patriarchal cultures, and in that context, the leader and the structures are not very differentiated. The leader, in a way, is also the structure. So there's a very low level of what we call institutionalization. Therefore, if you go against the leader, you will be in trouble. And I believe if you go against the leader's daughter, you are probably also in some sort of trouble. And this happened.
Okay, so if I can push you very quickly as we get to news time, therefore, now we know that he's not the SG any longer, Floyd Shivambu. He's not just an ordinary politician. He had a senior position within the EFF. Before that, of course, with the ANC, now moved on to the MK party. The plan was that he would be redeployed to Parliament as an MP. There was a deadline for that last week. That hasn't quite happened. There was no talk about where he's going yesterday when they spoke about the SGs. So where do you think his political future lies?
I think he's on his own. I heard rumors that he would like to establish his own party. And then we must also take into consideration there's the investigation of the VBS Bank, and he is very much implicated in this, is also an ongoing process. So I think Floyd is in serious trouble, and Floyd needs to reinvent himself, because at the moment there's no home for him within the EFF.
How does
there's
he?
also no home within the MK.
How does he reinvent himself? Like, what does he do?
Well, the only thing he can do is to establish a party, because all he did was to organize and mobilize support for political purposes. I'm not seeing and picturing him in a career outside of politics. Now he has the youth on his side. Maybe in some way he can try to make a rearrangement with the EFF, but I think at the moment this is probably highly unlikely. But it doesn't seem to me if Julius Malema is standing very strongly at the moment, so probably he needs some support. Maybe they can compromise, but I think it's an unlikely scenario. The other option is establish your own party.
And how much support will he get there, we don't know. Let's leave it at that, Prof. Andre Duvenage. Thank you for your time here on The National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Look at the headlines. Some organisations assisting flood victims with donations in the Eastern Cape have called for proper monitoring of donations to ensure they reach the flood victims. The Financial Action Task Force is expected to conduct an on-site visit to South Africa, which is the final step before a country can be considered for removal from the grey list. And some government officials in China have been ordered not to dine out in groups larger than 3 under tightened austerity measures. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Midrand queuing towards Buccleuch interchange. The N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported near Rigel Avenue, and the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. The R103 in Howick has a crash near Lions River, and the R102 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound queuing towards Coburg interchange. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards Meway exit, and the R300 southbound queuing towards the N2 highway exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgabele.
To me, it's the sky's the limit. And you made the point the other day about how much money Sundowns gets just for pitching up. Can you remember?
It's a lot. It's
a lot.
Of money.
That's all you need to know. It's a lot.
Well, talking about money, with just 3 group matches to play, Mamelodi Sundowns could earn up to 112.6 million rand just in the opening phase of the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Each group stage win is around worth $2 million, which is around 37.5 million rand, while a draw will be $1 million, around 18.7 million rand. That means that even before the knockout rounds begin, the Brazilians could walk away with a small fortune if they perform well. Remember that Sundowns kick off their campaign against Ulsan HD. This is at midnight tomorrow. So I hear Ashraf, it's tomorrow. This is South African time, obviously. Before taking on Dortmund on the 21st of June and Fluminense on the 25th of June. And midfielder Jaden Adams says that despite not knowing much about Ulsan, this will not deter them from playing their normal possession game, based game.
I think the team is ready. We like to have the ball, and even without the ball, the counter press, the press, even if we go in the low block, we stick as a team. And I think for me it's gonna be a difficult game, but I think we can go through this.
So, yes, they are playing at midnight against Ulsan. Now, just looking at the FIFA Club World Cup still, Chelsea legend Johnny Obi Mikel says that African football will be one of the biggest winners from the tournament currently underway in the US. The expanded tournament has 4 African representatives, and unlike the previous version, they get to play against oppositions from Europe and South America from the group stages.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, that's something pretty special. That will be special for clubs, from Africa, to be able to experience this tournament and to live it and see what we in Africa where we can get to if we can just get ours. I don't want to say the word, but get our heads right and make sure we improve the game in the right way and get the right people to run the game.
So Ashraf, Sundowns will earn around 174 million rand just to play in the tournament.
Just to pitch up.
Just to pitch up.
Well, there you are. But they've earned the right to do that, to get there in the first place. So
I wonder what it means, though, when it comes to the league, the local league, and the financial disparity.
Well, that's what it will do. It would have an impact on their purchase power in South Africa, even if they don't do well. And who knows, maybe they'll really do well. But even if they didn't, it will have an impact. But you can't change that, can you?
No. Well, still staying with football, Chippa United have announced a major clean out again, with 18 players leaving the club ahead of the new season. The Gqeberha-based club said in a statement that several of the players on the list, including Andile Jali and Craig Martin, had to come to an end of their respective contracts and would not be offered deals to stay on. In cricket on the go, South Africa's women's side, the Proteas women, are on 122 for no loss after 15 overs against the West Indies women, who won the toss and elected to bowl first. Remember, the series is at 1-1, so this is a decider, and the Proteas women are hoping to win this one. Meanwhile, Cricket South Africa is calling on Proteas fans to come and celebrate the team's World Test Championship victory this Thursday at the Nelson Mandela Square from 1 till 3 p.m. The first 100 fans that are going to come to Nelson Mandela Square are going to get the champions jersey. The Test champions jersey.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, the first 100 fans.
I thought they'll get on stage the first one.
No.
Okay.
I think it's a great incentive.
No,
to get.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So on Thursday, 1 till 3 p.m., Nelson Mandela Square, and you'll also have a chance to meet some of your favorite Proteas players. In athletics, the Spa Women's 10-kilometer challenge will celebrate a major milestone this Sunday in Durban, marking 35 years since the very first race. The iconic event began in Durban back in 1990 and has since grown into the world's biggest women-only street race, with editions now held across the country. Race organizers have confirmed that the 10-kilometer race and 5-kilometer fun run are officially sold out. In motorsport, Thailand's cabinet has approved $1.2 billion bid to host a Formula One street race in its capital, Bangkok, in 2028. And if successful, the Thai capital would win a contract to host a race each year from 2028 to 2032. Formula One already has a crowded schedule of 24 races around the world, with 4 in the Asia-Pacific region, including the Singapore Grand Prix in Southeast Asia. I'll be back again between 7 and 8, and we are looking at the FIFA Club World Cup and preview to that much-awaited clash of Mamelodi Sundowns versus Ulsan.
And just a quick one, what's the plane at the airport tomorrow? They
So
arrive 9:30 a.m.
Yes.
OR Tambo,
Yes.
Joburg,
Yes,
right?
OR Tambo, Joburg, and then they're going to head straight to the Cricket South Africa offices, where there's going to be a media conference, a media press
So
conference.
it's not at the airport.
No.
As often happens.
No.
Yeah. But what about the public that will get to the airport? Will they be
I'm
able
sure
to
they will
see them?
greet- they
Because in
will
the
see
past they've had
them.
a press, or they've had a public thank you at the airport when other teams have won like big games, like the rugby team.
From my understanding, it's not going to be there at the airport. They'll just arrive. I guess the fans will be there. They'll greet them. But the one where they'll be able to engage with fans properly, that's on Thursday.
Okay. I would have done both, actually. But anyway,
You're not
it's not
gonna get
every
it.
day you win a World Test Championship, do you?
Yeah. With that said, I am Duming Kapele Mudimugyo.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
A new client, a bulk discount, a chance to expand. Business opportunities don't wait, but with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan, neither do you. Get up to 10 million Rand in funding, access it anytime, and borrow again as you repay, giving your business the cash flow it needs when it needs it. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the SAFM Market Update show that happens at 6 to 7. The preview of that, as always, happens with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, good to connect with you. I see whether it was the CEO of MTN or Vodacom a few days ago talking about why the data period must stop. Take it or leave it, data bundles, that is. That's been discussed and more in Parliament. Tell me about that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, the questions have come up from a committee perspective around why that expiry needs to take place and why South Africans need to have their data not roll over indefinitely. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to unpack that and see if we can just get a better sense of that and the revenue models that the telecommunications providers then use and those sorts of things. We've also got a conversation with the team at Eduvos around the higher education space and particularly investing in Africa from that perspective. Then we've got a conversation with the team at the NSPCA around the fact that today, interestingly enough, is a crocodile day. And we're going to look at crocodile farming because we have our agri feature on a Tuesday, and we're going to take a look at what goes into crocodile farming, what should be looked at from that perspective and what should be wary of. We've also got a conversation with the team at Vukile Property Fund. They gave us an update on their financial year that was for the year ended March 2025. So we've got quite a bit of numbers to unpack from that perspective as well. Before we get to those, and sticking with the conversation of numbers, the markets are still on edge following the tensions in the Middle East. Equity markets feeling the main brunt of it. If we look at all equity markets, the Nikkei in Japan being the only equity indice that finished in the green. Everything else is in the red. The Hang Seng is in the red. The ASX in Sydney is in the red. All European markets, the DAX, the CAC, and the FTSE, all in the red. US markets in the red as well, around 0.25% in the case of Nasdaq. Our own markets, the All Share down 0.7%, resources down 2.4%, industrials down 0.3%, financials down 0.25%. So not a good day on the equity front. And if we look at the rand, a little weaker as well. 17 Rand 94 is what $1 will cost you. 24 Rand and 24 cents is what $1 British pound will set you back. And €1, 20 Rand and 68 cents. $1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand 67. $1 Bitcoin, $104,000 a Bitcoin. Or in Rand terms, 1.87 million Rand. So a little further away from that 2 million Rand mark. And that is likely because all of the focus is on the gold price, $3,378 a fine ounce. It was higher a little earlier today. Brent crude, $75.48 a barrel. Platinum, $1,257 a fine ounce. And palladium, $1,054 a fine ounce. So we're going to dig into these a little later on. I've got Chantal Marks on markets with me today. I want to get a sense of the developments from the Middle East, but also a sense of the US-China trade deal. We know they met in London last week, and hopefully we have some idea of where we're moving forward to now from that perspective. So we have quite a bit to dig into when we come back a little later on, but that's at 6 or just after 6. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, got that. Perfect. Thanks for that. Looking forward to your show. And then, as Tumi said, she hosts the Top Sports Show from 7 to 8 o'clock. And there's a lot more coming after that. All current affairs issues. And we do it all again tomorrow morning here on SAFM. But what's important, in fact, I'll take your calls as well. But there's developments regarding party funding, which we must touch on next.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So while we talk about this national dialogue, you may want to pay attention to this sort of dialogue as well. The Electoral Commission will host a symposium on political funding in South Africa tomorrow. I wish I was there. Now, related to the use of money in our politics. Basically, the funding models, and I would think the issues of the impact that it has on parties in terms of their policy, transparency, and accountability. So let's find out more about it with my guest, George Mahlangu, who's the IEC Chief Executive for Party Funding. Much appreciate your time, George. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Okay. I think it's important. Why is this symposium important? What sparked it off?
Look, Ashraf, you would know that this law was born 4 years ago. And basically, what we're doing here, we're going to reflect on the successes, the challenges, and whether there's anything that needs to be changed moving forward.
All right. So tell me what then is going to be discussed, debated, and taken forward.
Look, what the Commission has done, Ashraf, the Commission has commissioned a study or a research study through Human Science Research Council, just to get a sense on what South Africans have observed and what is it that they think needs to be changed. And as a Commission ourselves, because we are the administrators of this piece of legislation, we will present, to the plenary, to the South Africans that have been invited to come and have a discussion on this, on our experiences, on what we have observed in terms of compliance by various compliance and non-compliance by political parties, both represented and unrepresented. You would know that this law is applicable to all the registered political parties, whether you have a seat in either of the national or provincial legislatures. So we have also invited academics, the scholars, who have written papers around this particular area to come and share what is their experiences and what is happening in other jurisdictions.
What is the basic premise going into this event? That means, that we need party funding for democracy to thrive, or while we do that these funders have far too much influence over party politics, or does it not matter?
Look, I think many people agree that political parties have to be funded. And I don't think that there's a debate there. And political parties have to be funded to strengthen democracy. I mean, for a country to operate and and for business to operate within this space, you would want a platform that is nicely cemented. And if you've got weaker democracy, everything that is going to be done from the political and economical point of view, you will find that it operates on a platform that is not strengthened. The difference, though, is that what is sufficient and what is not. I mean, the civil society groups are of the opinion that the thresholds that have been approved by the political parties who sit, on the table is too high. And the political parties are saying, no, who can bribe us with these low thresholds? So where we are as the Commission, because we have not run any political office, we can't say what has been put on the table is sufficient or not. And I think all the scholars, all the participants that will be here will debate, and we will take the view of the majority and go back and see whether we can sponsor that with the politicians in Parliament, so that maybe the law gets amendment if needs be. If there's no need, there won't be any need to amend the law.
Okay, and just the last thing about that, you in terms of the overall theme, which talks about sustaining multi-party democracy through enhancing political funding regulation in South Africa. Now, I know it's maybe difficult to preempt, right? But the issue of regulation, is there a need for greater regulation or less regulation?
Look, this is going to be tested in the next 2 days. For an example, our framework is income-based. What does that mean? It means a political party can raise as much money as it can without any restriction of expenditure. But in other jurisdictions, the funding is expenditure-based. Basically, you say political parties that are participating at this level or that are going to participate in an election, we are putting a threshold of this much. So basically that puts a level ground, for all the participants. Because if me and Ashraf are going to participate at this level, if our expenditure is kept, then it's fair. But in the income-based approach, you can raise as much as you can, and the law is silent about where and how you can use that
That's
money.
where we'll leave it. Let's see what comes out of it. George Mahlangu, the IEC Chief Executive for Party Funding, ahead of this important symposium on just that, political party funding in South Africa, that starts in Umhlanga in Durban, KZN rather, tomorrow. This is the National Pulse.
Rockets want to take full control of 90 minutes. Meanwhile, First Touch ladies want to transition quick with First Touch football. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on glittering action between TS Galaxy Queens and First Touch ladies on Saturday 21 June at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
So, make a note of this, right? A 38-year-old man named Tabang is a real OUTsurance client who switched and now saves an unbelievable 363 rands a month on his 2018 Toyota Corolla 1.6. Yeah, 363 more money, rands worth of more money in his pocket every month. Get a quote today and see how much OUTsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08 600 60000 or visit outsurance.coza. You always get something out. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So I thought let's just play this clip that's very important regarding Floyd Shivambu. He spoke, earlier on to the SABC News political editor, Ms. Wandile Mbeje, in May, right? So we're talking about a good few weeks ago about his trip to Malawi and many other things. But in that interview, this is what he said about his trip to Malawi.
Criminals, like whichever church I want to go to, I can go to any religious institution as long as I believe that is a correct thing to do and everything else there. Like I'm not the only person who does that. I say to you now that there were more than 5,000 South Africans who were registered to participate.
But they're not the Secretary General of MK.
Yeah, they're not Secretary General of the MK, but I have the permissibility to go to any religious institutions. I, by the way, don't know what criminal offenses the other people whose churches have visited have committed in the past or have got to participate in. But I went to Malawi for a political program which was mandated and was very impactful in terms of the Pan-Africanist program and agenda which Mkhonto Sizwe is in pursuit of uniting Pan-Africanist and progressive forces all over the world and in the continent in particular. And Malawi is of particular interest because in the struggle against apartheid, Malawi associated with the apartheid government under Hastings Banda, the president there. They openly supported apartheid. They had full economic cooperation with apartheid. And we can't have a Malawi that is not part of Pan-Africanism, of a Pan-African developmental project. So the politics of Malawi must be contested and guided from that point of view. So,
okay, that's what he said about being sent to Malawi for political work, but that's not the same as going to visit the pastor. They're really two separate issues, aren't they? Because he did say that's in his personal capacity. But a lot has happened since then, right? Okay, let's get your thoughts. You're on the pulse, aren't you? After this.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Right, this comment about Floyd. KG, go for it.
to the African National Congress and go and tell all the secrets that he knows from his current party as SG, because clearly there's a plan for him to end up nothing. And I think it was foolish of him to have left his previous Ready Be Right party, considering the things that he did to the president of the MK party previously. He must have been, I don't know, thinking what, to have imagined that.
Well,
that
people make some
president
strange decisions, isn't it?
for giving him, for hounding him out. And lastly, Ashraf, I'm very disappointed in the professor stating as a fact the fact that Shivambu was mandated to go there. And when you ask him, he's saying he read it somewhere in the news. It's very disappointing for a person of his stature to
Well,
come to the radio and say such things.
it's a point I noted, as you obviously are aware. Thank you for that. Much appreciate your time there, right? Okay, let's get to more. This comment about the MK party. Here's one.
Good evening, Ashraf. This is Makwara Shinyazo from Tendo. You know what, Ashraf? It is amazing how a person like Floyd Shibambu, who I think is intelligent, but he miscalculated his move to the MK. Shibambu knew where he was going, and he knew that it won't end well there in the MK. I agree with Professor that Shibambu's journey in the MK will come to an end very soon. The problem is, where is he going from there? Oh man, this is very, very, very interesting time of politics here in South Africa. Can we see him opening another political party in South Africa? Maybe.
Someone said he may just host a talk show, like another one of his chommies, but no, I don't think so. He hasn't yet said he's leaving. We don't know anything of that sort, but he clearly has been, what's the right word? Well, shafted, maybe the stronger word, but there's certainly sideline in terms of his voice. I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. It's Joseph here from Randburg. I'm finding it very difficult to understand the logic behind these people who says that the national dialogue is not going to work. In each and every organization, from time to time, you have to conduct what we call a SWOT analysis using different models like PESTEL, looking at the political, economic side of the story and look at what are our strengths and all that kind of, and you strategize going forward. So this thing is all about that, to look where we come from and what is it that we need to do going forward. And there is nothing wrong with them. And it does not come cheap.
Well, I think point taken. Lots of people feel not like you. I tend to think we need to know the exact story, then we can pronounce on it without just throwing it out completely. The current situation is we do need some assistance, isn't it? Something has to give.
Hi, Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, this guy Zuma, I don't know, he just speak like as if someone who's still like maybe becoming on the, youth league. He cannot speak like, a matured person, addressing some of the things like a matured person so that, some of the people, they can learn for him. Always when he's speaking, he's just speaking like someone who's like excited because he see the crowd, and he can't even say something which like maybe, bringing the young people to learn from him.
Okay, point taken. And again, not much time to comment about it because, we'll maybe see what happens later on. Another one on dialogue.
Good afternoon. Ashraf, we don't need another round table here. The dialogue is already in your show. We can do a dialogue in your show. And as always, we are having dialogue every day and today in the national pulse. So therefore, this government is wasting money for nothing. They know what we are crying about. We want them to arrest all those who are implicated in the state capture to start with, and then thereafter, then they must recoup all the money that is lost and that is in the hands of the wrong people and take it back to the public purse. Then from there, we know that the country will go back to its normal economy state.
Okay, point taken. The national dialogue is called the National Pulse.
Afshad,
speaking to Stepo from Togoza. You know, there's something I don't understand. When Mike from Newlands called and speaking to you, you are too harsh for him. But Pumzile from Wimestorp, when he speak to you, you are too soft for him. It's not fair. Pumzile is always obsessed about DA. Even Mike is obsessed about ANC. You're supposed to treat them the same. Thank you.
Okay, you got me thinking as we wrap up the show, right? Too harsh on Mike, too soft on Pumzile. Really? Okay, this is the National Pulse. Follow the show. We put up podcasts all throughout the show, so you can check it up on the Twitter platform as well as on Facebook, but also on sfm.co. Just go to the website and then podcast and then the National Pulse. Listen and share that with your chommies. It'll be great if you do so. Thank you for listening. We'll do it again tomorrow. As always, this is what I'm going to say, not just the National Pulse. What did you say? That's like the ultimate dialogue, isn't it? But it is the National Pulse. Here's Greg Host now with the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf. A call for monitoring of flood victim donations in SA moves closer to grey list removal. Good evening. Some organisations assisting the Mthatha flood victims with donations in the Eastern Cape have called for proper monitoring of donations to ensure they